Banyuwan was born with the incredible ability inherited from his ancestor. He is able to understand any language. When he became an adult, he discovered that he could also absorb someone's skills just by touching. His grandfather always said that the or descendants of the people who built the Tower of Babel called that the prophecy one day a genius would be born who could read the star. The grandfather believed that Ben was this genius since he was a child, but the protagonist and his family did not believe the story until one day while waiting for the university accepted scribe. He was summoned and transported to a secret academy. It is there that he finds the legendary Tower of Babel. Ben finally believes in his grandfather and decided to fulfill his ancestors' call. The story began with our protagonist Banyuwan when he was 4 years old. The mother comments in a humorous tone that the son is already read a book. The father replies that he is very intelligent, but the mother thinks that he was the one who taught the boy to speak these words. Sadly, the protagonist to speak another language in his birth, so terrified the father of her speaking a language they have nearly forgotten. At that moment someone enters the house saying that Ben inherited the lineage of his ancestor. This key is the grandfather of the protagonist, and he is carrying his little sister under his arm. He celebrates that a genius was finally born to conquer the Tower of Babel back. The protagonist family are skeptical that you already the Tower of the Tower of Babel nonsense. The mother calls her daughter Yumi and asks if she had fun with her grandfather, while the father was the old man that he should take her first when he returns from the grandfather's stress. Because no one believes that it was his ancestors who built the Tower of Babel. At that moment the old man decides to explain the story to little Ben. He takes his notebook and starts to make some drawings. The grandfather explains that a great ancestor of his family had the ability that led him to communicate with all of them. With this power he led large groups, and together they built a tower that no one can ever destroy. This tower is the Tower of Babel. Ben was just a little boy who believed in his grandfather but was upset when he found that the old man did not know the location of this tower. The man promised that one day they would find and recover all the power of his family. While Ben was a child, his grandfather told many stories about the adventures of his ancestor the protagonist felt that he really had a lyrical ability. His parents did not interfere much because they believed that Ben had fun with the old man's stories. But then in the protagonist's Ben realized that story was too crazy to be true. A few years pass and the scene changes for Ben sitting in front of the computer, waiting to be accepted into a university. His co-host studied political science. He was angry because the results still did come. Deep down the boy was sure he had passed. Sadly the computer calls off the body semester in the bear. Ben approaches to see what happened. A blue screen appears in front of the computer. In another language he realizes that it is a different language and still manages to decipher the message on the screen. Congratulated the protagonist for passing the best academy in the alternate dimension. The boy is surprised that can read this language. The next moment another blue screen appeared, informing that Ben will be teleported to the place of practical evaluation. A countdown starts from 10 seconds. The protagonist turns up thinking it's a prank, and his sister Yumi was behind it. He could think of someone else to play this kind of prank. Sadly, an acceptance letter arrives from the university on his computer. Man can't contain the happiness of having been accepted. The countdown. The protagonist believes that this blue screen is a thing of his imagination due to the mental fatigue he has gone through in the last few days. Sadly, a blue light covers the boy and he disappears without a trace. In this moment someone knocks on the door and enters. It's his sister Yumi. She looks around and does find the protagonist. Meanwhile Ben is teleported and falls into a somewhat dark place. The system warns that this special exam has started for the candidate from a lower dimension. The protagonist feels his headache from the fall and thinks it's too real for reload. Another blue notification appears in front of him. With the following mission he must defeat the blind kobolds and destroy the core of the dungeon. Ben holds his head down, asking when he said up for something like this. Suddenly a noise is heard behind him and the boy turns around. The blind goblins realize they have an enemy. They talk to each other in a language of their own, but for some reason the protagonist understands the phrase the monsters are saying. He puts his hand to his mouth so no noise escapes. Then thinks it's better to trade cultwood from here before these things start attacking. Suddenly the goblins celebrate and start hitting with the bat in all directions. One of these blows almost hits Ben. He realizes that it could be fatal if it was hit. The protagonist begins to distance. He believes he can get rid of these monsters. Because they can't see but suddenly the boy ends up making a noise the cobra and told him and the bloke raised his face. Man falls to the and then isn't taught to sales the first cobra asks what happened the second replace that he heard a sound coming from the sea. He adds that the enemy must still be here the protagonist is horrified realizing that if this case or blind that easily identify any sound and movement. Man realizes that there is no way to continue hiding because he will be found and he immediately has the idea to distract these monsters and bait him the boy then takes a rock next to his body. And throws it in front of the cobras in opposite direction to his other tentacle twist the monsters caught out the noise. It is at this moment that the protagonist attacks from behind using a stone the cobra notices that the brave is behind. And runs toward him but ends up accidentally hitting his partner the first goblin takes a fatal blow to the head and falls on top of the second. The protagonist observes the scene the second goblin realizes the mistake he made man approaches him with the wood club in hand he apologizes and says that he is doing this to survive. The next moment he destroys the second goblin bodies begin to disappear and the system congratulates him on the first hunt as a reward. He received the bar of the rubber diminish looks card a yellow letter and his home and the system says that the bar of the Babylonian code has been locked. This bar will be displayed using diagram. Diagram is basically symbols that represent concepts of things. The system adds that the concepts of monsters are being absorbed into the protagonist finally realizes has no ability in addition to decipher any language. He can also extract concepts from things. The system says that concepts have been copied as recommended store by celebrities in the Babylonian code. After replaying that the statistics band decides to absorb the concept for himself after doing so he says that he already feels more confident. The system says that the bowel gets stronger and begins to feel nor feel his body actually feels stronger when absorbing the concepts of this goblin. The protagonist looks around and notices that the monsters disappeared after they had their abilities absorbed and also realizes that. In addition to absorbing the concept for himself he can also apply it to other things such as objects. For example, the protagonist finally feels sad and begins to use the concept to create a weapon. A few hours later man clears the dungeon of the blind kobolds with the help of an artifact created by himself. The boy delivers the core to the system which congratulates him for passing the practical test of this special diminish exam where the protagonist breathes a sigh of relief. And if he can finally go home the system reveals that the candidate will be transferred to the dormitory. Ban initially thought he would go home if he made it out of the dungeon life but in fact he was sent to a world he had never seen before. The academy called uni. At that moment Ban falls into his dorm totally bewildered. The system asks him to put on his uniform. And at the end of the interview protagonist complains and he didn't want to study here, he wanted to return home. A moment later the boy puts on his uniform. He goes toward the interview room to demand his teleportation back. They has suddenly been opens the door and comes across a crane woman. He thinks she is beautiful but wonders if she is an elite. The woman welcomes her and introduces herself as the main magic combat teacher at Union Academy. بينما embarrassed Yamin congratulates him on passing the exam. She explains that Ban has caught the attention of all the superior. He is the first student in 500 years to create a new artifact during the evaluation. The protagonist listens to sales Yamin blows his intelligence. Bain doesn't think this is something embarrassing but he believes that the difference between them is the world that he came from. Before the woman it was a great victory. Suddenly something catches his attention and he looks at the window. Benson asks the teacher what that you'd to Yamin heard that people from lower dimension Hafney for her the bad Uni Academy or about the star with this question from the protagonist. She concludes that it is true. The teacher then explains that the star is the reason why the Union Academy was created to teach the student. With the kite stands in all dimensions and help them to reach the top of the star. This is the only objective of the Union Academy to beat the dungeon. That is the origin of all the mysteries and dangers of the Swordium. No finally replace that the star is the Tower of Babel. The protagonist is surprised and the first thing that comes to mind is his grandfather. The old man has always told stories about the star. And about how his ancestors are responsible for creating it, but something still didn't make sense in Ben's head. He didn't understand why the teacher referred to the tower as the most powerful dungeon. The boy wondered if the tower was taken over by monster and knew it was something that could be answered. That teller made the protagonist enroll in the Union Academy. His goal became to fulfill his ancestors' wish and regain the glory of his family. After that day the protagonist was sent back home and was able to explain to his family the reason for his sudden disappearance. Grandfather was shocked that he had finally found the Tower of Babel while his father only supported him to do what had been done a few days past. Ben was already a student within the Union Academy at that moment. He was fatal in the lower dungeon called Kubik if the protagonist was already rebuilt cast spells and had a character understanding of his abilities now only when attack was needed. This meant a large cube of goblins. The Babylonian code was the most incredible barbarian could have. Thanks to this ability the protagonist could absorb and manipulate the concepts of all monsters when enemies defeated. His concepts can be absorbed by ban. After doing this the protagonist can use it on himself for imbued statistics and any object he uses it with. Thanks to this that the protagonist created his first artifact in that first dungeon. He filled his web with a bat with ions bakes fertile for low-level monsters. Ban always imbued the concepts of the goblins and the artifact got stronger and stronger. At that moment the protagonist caused the system he would set now. What new concepts he got from these monsters a different statistic bears in the system code solvable wonders. What this means the bat stores critics. And the protagonist asks if he wants this concept. The artifact responds positively so Nick raise and decides to imbue the statistic a variable flat surrounds the web. The system informs that the combined concepts form a perfect harmony causing a transformation in the artifact. The next moment explosion happens. And the protagonist covers his face. The web stats are increased and realizes that his web is not a snake. He tries to approach with his hand and is afraid that his new artifact will not recognize him, but she is able to identify its owner. Protagonist realizes that his personality is the same as before but now has that if the artifact can still turn into a magic web or shield. The snake grabs it in his hand and then decides to give it a name. He says that she will be called Leaf, then decides to check if her stats have increased and observes the board in front of him. With his own information the Leaf stat seems to be a concept similar to the Leaf in a chem difference seems to represent physical stats. But what the protagonist doesn't understand is why the so stat is so he still doesn't understand all the names in that bent. So he sums up each one means below. He comes across some of his abilities. The first is code of sin, the second is code of here. The protagonist thinks that these abilities are probably related to language skills. After that he turns to Tiff and asks if she thinks she is capable of surprising everyone. Snake responds negatively with his headband replaces that refreshes his fine and paralyzes the tail about back. He reappears in the auditorium of the Union Academy where the entry ceremony is taking place. All the students gather. The protagonist is shocked by the amount of people. At that moment he activates his ability code of sin, which allows the user to understand the aura and strength of a target in a debut. That's all banal is that all those students are extremely strong and like the protagonist who entered through a lower dimension. These regular students went through another selection process to enter the academy, but this is out something that makes the protagonist fight. At that moment he tries to find his place in the auditorium. Suddenly someone yells at him and he turns around trying to understand what happened. Frauke orders the protagonist to leave the lower dimension because he is from a lower dimension but quickly doesn't start to get of that. This discrimination of the students who went through the regular process was expected by Ben. He already knew that these kids were going to think they were better than those who came from a lower dimension. Boy keeps walking by the students so someone calls him. He then sees his roommate called a slate who also come from a lower dimension. Ben approaches and realizes that the students from lower dimension or like the teachers or far from the rest of the students. At this point the protagonist uses skill and surprise. The rank of these students does not seem to be from a lower dimension. Ben believes that they are strong enough to destroy those killers. He soon tells his roommate that these players are managed. The lady does not understand if it is any lady is the roommate that Ben met in the dome. Before the entry ceremony in the first meeting they had, the protagonist was rated with a sword after an late conversation. Finally understood that the boy was his roommate. They then talked about how was they trained to enter the academy. The friend learned that the protagonist went through a couple dungeon. He thought it was something very easy to do, but we all know how much the protagonist took the first dungeon. Slay says that if a new recruit with basic train could hunt a couple easily, but looks silly hear this after the conversation. The protagonist remembers that he arrived from training and did coat take a shower. He then starts to take off his shirt to coat the bathroom. But his friend has a slightly strange reaction as if he is embarrassed to see his body was not the kind of reaction expected say from a man. The scene trusts the recruitment the autorin ban starts to create the cross next the slit he can't look much at the girl with Bنوا. Because he thinks she's too cute she quickly turns her face embarrassed the girl with the black he looks at the ban in a different. Cause the protagonist be embarrassed she soon has to stand on her room as Bell realizes that if has been discovered and then decides to show her. The three of the more know of this snake later realizes that this is the same artifact as before he was surprised. That it has changed so much in just a few days the crew with Bنوا has تشهر because she thought it was too cute the black-eyed one gives a satisfied smile. And introduces herself as the queen daughter of a martial art trainer. The protagonist what her name is he introduces himself as Bنوا. The protagonist sits next to her نفس a martial art تلاقي ثلاثة explodes this question makes the crew very embarrassed. And lowers her head she tries to answer that he is not totally wrong the Bnوا tries that of the subject a little. And also introduces herself her name is Rachel F. Late also introduces herself answers that everyone can just call him Late which is his nickname enters his head. And Late doesn't understand what happened the protagonist soon was that the ceremony is about to begin he soon says Professor Yami. Sitting next to the leader superiors different as if the protagonist passed by Professor Yami when he left here. Man answers his son asks if he does too suddenly the conversation is interrupted by a late at that moment the seal of the auditorium opens and overwhelming the pressure enters. Involving all the students everyone tries to cover themselves and no one causes scared not if this British stood. Soon they hear the brass of his thank and everyone for their braces then this burst says that he is going to star. Another inter-ceremony of the Uni Academy a little later the teacher Yami meets with the protagonist and his classmate she asks if they also find the principal's speech embrace the students or sailed by the enough if that JT is the principal Yami is surprised to hear this. And questions if he could really see that Rachel says that most people are too intimidated if look Abian looks at him. Believe that he used some kind of special method the protagonist raised this case what he said then says that in fact he did say anything he just felt a big looking at him. Yamin replies that I knew I won't see the director unless he cause problem she then approaches the protagonist. And if he wants to have a conversation with the principal Ben replies that this seems like a curse the teacher laughs. And soon it faces the could be the best she says that the victory of her students is very important to her later if Yamin will be responsible for them. And she replies that that's right late is surprised the teacher decides to formally introduce herself to everyone she says that her name is Yami. And she teaches magic combat the teacher adds that she has been assigned as the head of her West class which is class 11. So from today they will work together for the next 5 years later if the lower level spiritual Dimish student should not be sent so sheet Professor Yamin replies that normally that's right but the process spiritual students that she was sent to take care of them. At that moment the teacher takes a cup of tea and the tone of her face changes she then advises the boys to be careful with regular admission student. Ben observes the teacher's words and realizes that she is referring not only to grades and practical class but also to confrontation physical and teasing fights between students. Matters that said of internal competition is something that not if teachers can interfere with Yamin says that from now on the four of them must start together. The lower students with lower level special admission units still thinking about the hostility that the teacher spoke of. She is not sure if she can hold her own a confrontation against these regular at this point the teacher gives another very important information. She says that the four are also members of the club that will claim the are together until graduation thinks about it the teacher smells saying that they have talked a lot. And she needs to give a small gift that the academy has prepared for them a strong late engagement the club of student Yamin adds that she will explain the rules and details. After receiving the certificate a little later the club held a band in their hands the teacher explained that this will serve as a student decoy. To identify and access all the details of the students the club can also use this band to teleport any place within the Uni Academy at this moment the students look at the band. Thinking about what they are going to do the magic of teleportation is what impresses everyone the most later than points. That they will not keep the stupid band if they want enter the tower whether they like it or not they will not take good care of it. Rachel asks why the protagonist was left behind or a place that there is no way to know until they meet him. The crew feels eternally that there is something strange. After all, in the middle of the conversation, the teacher received a call and Ben was the only one selected to leave the room. The sent challenges to the protagonist set in nature. Without understand why he is there, the boy thought so it could because he knew he was going to have a brief conversation with the director. He doesn't understand what he may have done wrong for this to happen on the first day. Sadly, says that the boy doesn't need to be afraid to look at his true form. The protagonist looks up towards the face and all he sees is a bear in front of him. He doesn't believe that this is the principle. Face then says that the protagonist can call him master but increase the principle then says that he doesn't normally interfere with the cause of the students. If that are weak, they will remain weak. If they are strong, they will remain strong. It is also not important to him whether the students will remain alive or not. When they claim the terror, his call is just a witness with his oath is the one who reaches the end of the terror. The protagonist looks at the bar without much expression and remembers the phrase he heard from his grandfather when he was a child. The old man who was said that his family was the only one who could rescue the terror. He remembers the day he entered the academy and fell into the terror of Babel. It was when he promised that he was ready to risk his life and recover his family's honor, but now that he has seen the number of students who also want this, he may have been a little confused at this point. The protagonist calls the master and asks what exactly the terror is. The director replies that the terror is the path to the divine ban. Is surprised. The master repeats what he said at the beginning about not interfering in the lives of the students, but today he will make an exception because he was able to see in the protagonist the great potential that has first stepped into this academy. The bar then realizes his own mind atmosphere spread throughout the room. Suddenly something unfelt that Ben did that ban received from the teacher. The master says that he will make some preparations to help him prepare to claim whatever he reveals that he has expanded his exploration privilege. It said the academy. This means that from now on the protagonist can travel to any dungeon, so Ben must make short on his skills before claiming the terror. The boy tries to understand the freak that is happening. The director then opens a portal under his feet and says that if Ben makes any progress, he will unlock the next privilege for him before being teleported. The protagonist asks what kind of privilege we give him replace. That may be a solo exploration of the terror ban falls into the hole. The director says he is looking forward to the next meeting. Suddenly the protagonist falls into the teacher's arms. The woman asks curiously how they meet with the director when Ben realizes that he is close to her malice and quickly walks away. Mensa that the director always dismisses visitors like this. One day he will get used to cheat is a look at Ben's bend and realizes that he has been given permission to leave the academy. The protagonist says that the headmaster told him to quickly improve his skills. Means says that this is a big deal. Now he can freely explore the other dungeons that say the terror and can face other things at will. This also means that Ben will gain much more experience and preparation than the leaders. To be honest, at first the protagonist did not understand that the director saw ability him. In fact, the boy thought he was so weak that's why he was kept a supplementary class teacher. Main says that she's devil's teachers or you do little visit Koran. Ben asks to she replies that the Uni Academy is designed for the students, so the teacher should be in charge of providing the phrase they can't them. Now she's jealous because the protagonist will be able to leave the academy and if his stores. The teacher then approaches Ben's face and says that there is a beautiful atrocity that she can recommend her live miserably. The protagonist feels a little embarrassed and asks if he should bring her something for the recent changes. A little later Ben is walking and said, "Did you?" He remembers that the teacher asked him to bring 2 bottles of wine called honeymoon. It is made by the priests of the temple. Ben did not expect that the teacher would ask a student to bring alcohol to the gym anyway. This is not something that needs your attention at that moment. The boy takes a deep breath, thinking that he should use the privileges to his advantage. He then opens the inventory and realizes something on the back that his grandfather gave him before he returned to the gym. Was there at that time the protagonist was organizing his things to go back to the gym. That's when his grandfather left with a back and said he could take whatever he wanted from there. Ben opened the back and found the pure code. He asked if he could really take something like that. The old man laughed, saying that these are the legacies of his ancestors who dedicated themselves to find the editor of Babel. The protagonist thanked him very happily, but soon after they got into an argument Because the boy didn't know how he was going to bring the academy back the correct moment the protagonist thinks that fortunately. He has the inventory for it. His grandfather always said that code is valuable anywhere in the world, so he decided to pick up some bases before corner and Ben knows that the preparations are complete and decides it ventured a little later he arrives in a city. And realizes that if though it is another dimension their landscape looks with similar suddenly he notices some small spaceships laying the freeway. Passers-by are also very different from the ordinary people of his dimension. At that moment someone called the protagonist. Token case ask who he is and what he doing here Ben doesn't have time to answer because the case son recognizes his uniform to see that the boy is from the Academy. The men immediately burst back and introduce themselves as codes in charge of the western border of the academic city Ronek the Wayde. Those the attention of passers-by and the protagonist also introduces himself as Bani Wahid and says that he is a first-year student at the Academy. One of the codes asks if he received permission from the director to leave the academy ban replaces the master said he could explore freely. The code then says that it is thanks to the hard work of the director and the academy team that the city remains peaceful to this day. So he thanks the protagonist for his praises. The boy is a little embarrassed listen and told the second code offers to help the protagonist. If he needs it since he is a first-year student he probably doesn't know much about the city or its workings but really understands that he is a great help. And as if man can do it the man replaces this is part of a code Joe so Ben can feel free to ask anything he is curious about. The protagonist soon points at something that looks more like a flying car and says he would like to get one of those. He asks how much they cost moments later. We see the boy on top of a floating bike at many kilometers per hour. He is really enjoying the fact that he is out of the dew. The codes watch him fly at full speed when the protagonist asks the price of flying cause the code said that the basic model of the floating bike cost $250 it's quite expensive for them but not for the protagonist who had several code balls in his inventory. He took one and asked that was enough to buy. The case opened their maths and surprise and one of them soon asked to her bank code such a large code ball the same comes back to the protagonist. On his floating bike he discovered that a single code ball is worth $7.5 million Ben doesn't even know how to thank his grandfather for forcing him to bring something like this into this world. Sadly if the bears on his own the protagonist asks what she thinks of this floating bike. The boy reports that it was infused with you and quite turned her into a living artifact. The protagonist adds that her not misled and he hopes that his artifacts will have a code relationship. At that moment the boy begins to repeat the things he has already done today. He's already taken the drink from teacher Yamin. He has already cooked a friend for if so he concludes that it is time to go back to school. The same changes ban. Late hands him a glass of water and we can see on his face that he is angry. The boys called the protagonist for disappear without Sarivanith and come back an offer. Bani apologizes. He tells his classmates that teacher Yamin insisted so he could refuse. Late was annoyed that he was his room. He wouldn't have worried if he had been warned before. You notice something on his amulet and asks if this badge is the sign of the represented from. He receives exchange for drinking with the teacher. The protagonist assumes that he can't say what really happened so he only says that it's a represented from. For half of complete the task given by the teacher late enters the conversation and says that Yamin is responsible for them so the cop cannot reject any of her tasks. Yon does not think exactly so she says that if the cop needs a representative it should be her. The crust that she is the strongest mother for. At that moment she looks into Ban's eyes and asks if he agrees. The boy doesn't answer anything but let loose his bushes. And tells the crew that she should talk like that or a cop and should support each other not try to be superior to the other. Later points at you. And goes on to say that is up to this ridiculous act like it's better is no code for the cop that will claim that her unit sailed finish. Late says that he also does key that she is the strongest man before you smays and says that it's a little contradictory for the key. Say that everyone is equal in strength considering that yesterday he himself asked Yamin if he could claim the terror alone. Banan Ruth Lord just watched the fate and food late traced give me explanation as to he asked that but he just stutters Ben lay sturdily on the table. And thinks that his plan to talk the cube but tomorrow window did run meanwhile the tension between Late and Young continues. At first the protagonist did want to be the representative of the four but now he kind of understands the way he was chosen by Yamin. Among the members of the co-band says Let as someone with ridiculously strong brain is incredibly self-centered. Apparent mark enemies will racially surprisingly could she doesn't have the personality to lead other people think about. The protagonist decided كيف his opinion in the cob here is his hand and says that he represented doesn't necessarily have to be someone stronger. Yon questions why he thinks so vulnerable that someone stronger will make all the decisions of the cob on his own. And the representative calls to unite the members but if he acts like this he will end up separate roughly when the three look at him understand his point of view. The protagonist continues to say that any the president of the class needs to be someone who can offer fair and good solution for everyone. That's why he thinks he should be the representative and gets up from the table and says that since the teacher has the authority to point the class represented, she will accept that he has this position thanks and sadly the crossface darkens and she says that honestly the only person she really would leads him. The protagonist asks so that means she says that she is willing to accept the necessary to conquer the toilet begins to tremble with anger and wonders what she means by necessary. The protagonist raised come down and falls on the table to Rachel calls Ban's attention and he looks at her vehicle with bright eyes asks for her snack. She really wanted to share at least once Ban started by this request later that day the protagonist met with his class for a trail class. Several of the students were really strangers they were scattered while the teacher explained the test the man says that for the first class. He thought of starting with a late train research but as we know the students of the regular admission or unbearable they tell the teacher that they preferred fight with the students of the lower admission they tells his scope that it seems the academy defeats the class. Based on the students' abilities and as we can see class واحد هاتس class 11 at that moment the student can notice بنوا Ban's uniform. He soon recognizes that it is something done by teacher Yamin after all shares the codes of letters the keys offer pages. And screamed fiercely for the teacher to let him fight Ban the students put their hand to their ear after this death and scream. The teacher asked Ban if it's okay to fight to the sent changes for teacher Yamin she accessed the information of her students and realizes that at this moment. They are in the dream in a joint task with this special upper class the won't is scared because there is no for a class from the lower dimension. To be able to run with the class from the higher dimension Yamin is already but her student she tells herself that she doesn't know who prepared this prank but she feels that this burst did that of malice the scene comes back to the protagonist and he apologized the teacher, claiming that he is not at the level of the student and does not think he can when the teacher replies that this is out excuse but wonders if this key is trying to help the regular students humiliate the lower admission he then turns to the teacher and says that is not excuse. That's the truth by not that he was accepted as a special admission student because of his unique ability not because of his combat skills. Protagonist Steve says that he has other ways for the teacher to evaluate his ability as a special student so it would make sense to force him to say. The man gets stressed by the weapons backs and starts yelling if the boy is trained to teach a teacher protagonist asks if he is not a teacher. The man does not accept this question until 5 more points from the Ben taught the boy has already lost 12 points for not being the teacher. Ben takes a deep breath wonders if this is how this key is going to be the next moment the boy has the idea he says that it would be better to take advantage of this week as Babel time and do the fight next week his scope is surprised everyone is sailed while Ben repeats what he said before. The students of the regular admission begin to mock him saying that a week of Babel seems like a joke meanwhile a girl in a hat sat around the rubber stab silently observes the unfolding of the situation. The student complains that the protagonist is running away from the fight someone says that it is obvious that his skill is at a rock bottom that's why he is asking for a week of Babel. The teacher refers at the height of anger and if the protagonist still wants to change the schedule of his class but looks bored while it trembles with fear. The teacher then declares that he has a decision next Tuesday there will be an official fight between Recto and Ben the format will be completely open to the public. And the entire academy will be able to watch the live broadcast man comes taking coach that in fact the key wants to make his humiliation a great spectacle. The teacher approaches saying that it is better for the boy to show his skills since he asked for this period of Babelish the protagonist quickly interrupts the teacher. Answer that he already understood after that he asked Recto informing him that he is looking forward to the fight next week the stone key looks at him in a way But internal his back and thoughts live. In fact, the protagonist did not want to counteract what he really wanted was to use his skill to confirm the opponent's stats. And that work the boy sadly realized the level of the enemy. It looks like it's going to be a tough fight. It has a high level and a lot of strength. Protagonist believes that if it was any member of his team it would be easy to defeat this key, so he recruits being the weakest of the group. But he is determined to defeat the enemy and level up to help his team at the Tower of Babel. At this moment the protagonist approaches the crowd and asks whether Felses looks so calm. That's when he notices the absence of young Felses, the enemy class, and says that Nick the representative of her class. She is an expert in combat, then questions if they are not curious to see the skill of inferior stud. Of special damage. The protagonist realizes the problem that is raising and takes an elastic band to her will deliver anyone to face her. The students look at her with anger and there is meanwhile the crew stands in the middle of the drain stand waiting for some bone. The teacher cut his teeth. The protagonist tries to use his skill on the crew but for some reason his eyes can't fully comprehend the extent of his strength. All he can see is a dark war exuding from the crew. There is no way the students of class 1 can't feel her offer والمغور. At that moment Yon makes the sign with his hand, challenging him right to fight her just like he did with Ben. Students look toward the stone man. The crew's face is terrifying. When she says she will crush him, Rack feels it and with his pain. Ben decides not to interfere. He notices that Rack is terrified. After all, he was his origin talked, but now he was challenged by someone he did expect can to make matters worse as a curious to combat anew. The protagonist thinks the key will have probably because if he backs off people will notice, but if he fights he will be so hurt that a hook will not be enough for his recovery. The protagonist quickly has the idea and goes towards the end. He says that he will have a fight with Recto next week, so she would say she'll have to hurt her. The girl doesn't understand why he's intervened and nafsif befrith is okay ben confirms and thanks him for the concern that says he really would satisfy. To prove his Oskazian is surprised by these words and turns the random burst. She says she thought the boy was just a key who trusted Rick. But maybe he can have a little masculinity. After that the girl declares that she will not fight Recto but if there is someone brave to face her. No one dares to answer Kirkimble in that they were barking so loud a little willico, but now that a real threat has appeared or hidden like a dog. Yon starts to talk and suddenly someone asks who she is called. The dog a man with horns says that it is always the weak who yon it backs. The someone who pretend to barter the little group yon looks fix brush silly on his face while the protagonist wonders who this key. If none of this special class he seems to be on another level. It says that this key is a Romo, a ruler of the kiddo's dimension. The protagonist seems confused with that known who Romo is and what diminishes kiddo's friend explains that exclude the Academy. There are 10 dimensions with the highest hierarchies or dam comes from a family that rules one of these dimensions, which is called kiddos. But finally understands the size of the problem. The claim it goes mad filming between Yan and Ordam. A few minutes later the key approaches the teacher and asks for something. Relachilas swap the object in the teacher's hand is later believes that it is a recorded device that must be filmed a public video. The teacher soon throws the object up. The protagonist asks what happens after it is filmed. Later believes that as far as he knows a share of reference something code in turn, but he doesn't know what that means. Ben quickly opens his system different deaths if he knows what in turn is the protagonist replaces a network created by companies or education institutions to exchange information. At that moment Ben opens the network and shows it to them. Rush immediately finds the channel where the live broadcast of the Academy is being held. The protagonist realizes that the professor is doing the will of the students for higher admission, but is confident that the key will not have his cure. At that moment Yon and Oram first each other both exode the press or Yon calls the key a newbie and says he will let him take the first step. Oram raises her hand in her direction and decides that she will in this racket. To the next moment the man orders her to kneel. Strong Beller catches all the students and feel their bodies carried out of control as if he is being forced to kneel. The protagonist realizes that it is a type of bar that is a lot of his rate. Some students can't stand it and force the ground with the pressure. Ben says his body conflicting with his brain, seems that his body would stop as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Sadly Ben wades his eyes and says that this bar is a distortion of natural law. Later on asks if he has discovered what the principle of disabilities protagonist is about answer. When he feels someone grabbing his arm he turns around and says they must not happen but they start shaking as she looks at the overwhelming bear in front of her. At that moment Jan encases his energy and destroys all those bear everyone's breath they thought or those kill with the strongest. In that location the Bond braces Jan for eliminating his bear he teases the crusade in that bear she has some ability. You realize that he can't say this able him after all Oren's bear is as ridiculous as his house he laughs and tries to attack with the same barrack. But the cruelest man runs at him barbar with a Koram is surprised by a real combat unit of the really thought. She was going to be worth for him to concentrate to attack her at that moment Oram is it and thrown back he starts to barbar a spell on his hand. We thinking he should be more attentive sadly universe behind himself that he has to work his body more since her brain doesn't work. Oram quickly turns with his hand to attack her but Yum was faster and landed never kicked her as she mocked her in that he was terrible at the fatal the kid raised hit Yun in every possible way. But it's infuriated shocked see he overwhelmed Yun is she's defeated the commander of a dimension easily the Brotakins says that. It seems that case used to suppress defeat the Lubont user the distortion of nature law but this malice did not work on Jan. That's why he is losing way that Okoromo keeps skeleton bait the Brotakins says that he keys code with bears but not in real combat latest surprise. That ban is understanding the principles of their abilities at that moment or math high unders it inside him the crasts if he is still able to speak. And continues attacking suddenly the key launches a first attack with all his bear here in the hit the can differentially destroying the frith. Oromo son screams with fear in her race saying that he will destroy her own active as Robiskel and prepares to attack as well. Suddenly someone claps and says that it is enough the next moment briefly Remain destroys the attack of the two with her own skill the brain is covered by flaws. And the bonds look at each other trying to understand what happened Yamain says that in this academy students are not encouraged to fight for their life. She gives an angelic smile and adds that it is better to self this for the tenor after a lot of conversation the teacher breaks the hallucination of the flowers. The man is shocked that it is an eulogy he managed to smell the flowers Oram just turns his back and leaves Jon bells the teacher for being quite strong. Anne retreats at her cob she asks the Brotakins to it and he replies that the crow is a mizran and was about some more things. When Rachel hacked him from behind by knives beneath her happened the crow just remembers he realizes that she is scared of you. And tells himself that this is cute suddenly their attention is drawn to Professor Yamain she tells Professor Fair that he deserves a punishment. The key keeps his head though will be in the school the Yom knows that he continued if though he nothing's called Coram Fair apologies that. Yomino says that this will not end with a simple apology so he must be prepared after that the teacher leaves she approaches the Brotakins. And her mood son challenges Yamain adjusts his approach and says that he can't use his gift only the student or shocked say. Hali the teacher totally challenges her personality with Benjamin says could bait the students and leaves the Brotakins to realizes that the teacher's intelligence was comes in the door. But now it seems that she has shaken teeth more at that moment the students look furry and creative as if the boy had stole something from them the next day. The news about Yuna Northam's fate spreads everyone comments about inferior half and beat a regular admission student someone comments. That the first year students look as the recorded video showed exactly how Oram had no chance at all in the video. Also bears the Brotakins and the teacher the students notice the way she treats him and asks how this boy has the same challenges to the Brotakins and his team. Ben reads some comments from that video and says that the whole world seems to be talking about the muses that are something very strange. The Brotakins tasks what it is she then comments that Oram was the key known to have the greatest potential in class 1. But it turns out that she noticed a curl in a hat in the lower corner of the stairs and felt a much greater came from this curl and realized that she could notice nothing. Meanwhile it says that Ban's name is spread through the school community the Brotakins says that he is being Turkey. Because the students are afraid to challenge the true potential of his scope that is and the chronically asks if the Brotakins knows what the students are really talking about his name is not being managed in an ether for from the fate being preferred act as if he didn't know. That people are talking about him and the teacher at that moment let those attention to Rachel who is sitting far from them. It seems that the girl doesn't he managed to overcome the fear he has of Jan the Brotakins doesn't understand how that they still share the same room. Suddenly he has an idea and takes some thought of the inventory the boy is determined to make Rachel feel more comfortable. He then takes out a special elixir jelly concentrated in thousands of fruits to promote the overall cost invested 6 the protagonist offers the jam. His friends at Badon Brother Hal smells it and looks toward the jam late and Rat Hal started the door surprised by this. And comment that this jam is the best thing in the world to defer the freeze and that comes their way the protagonist looks at Ruth. And cause her to join them in the blink of the curly brooches with the chair closed the protagonist and asks if he could make one of these for her too. Then quickly hands her a loaf of bread she eats it and says it is very good the fruits or fresh lettuce breast that this jelly is made by Bansky. Meanwhile Jonas eat more the protagonist replies that she can eat as much as she would. She says that she feels like she is eating something. Precious but replies that it is not that expensive besides that the or eating the best thing is shared with the free one Rachel continues to eat her well. All happy meanwhile Ian refuses to eat for free if Dobbin says that the free is fine she sadly gives up. And pulls the protagonist by the tail and says she will personally teach him a martial art exchange for this elixir man looks on in disbelief with the bread in his mouth. Sadly Ian uses her bandit to teleport with the protagonist running room the boy says that they left in the middle of the meal. Come here and asks so she will teach and use a wood sword and asks him not to move carelessly sadly. She runs to attack and Ben is taken by surprise the sword to pinches from his face. You laughs at it. It was an embass the protagonist's barely. He notes that it was a movement to the tense of her strish ordered its hard to believe that the scam was executed by a human. But it was at that exact moment that Ben discovered a new concept called penetration. The protagonist wonders what it means at that moment. Jon traced caught his attention and asks him to concentrate. She explains that embass does exist in just one form. It can be done with any ridiculous sound shows the most basic and fundamental mean of an embass. She makes a quick movement with the sword. And pushes forward. She makes a sequence of these movements and akin to the wood sword near the protagonist. Jan finished by saying that there are numerous variations but these are the basics. He only needs to read about making an embass. The protagonist understands a little of the basic concepts that she wanted to convey but he also knows that this car has trained for years. So for her it will be easy at that moment to nafs if you what they believe sadly for he asks her to be patient. Because it will be a clumsy metish the colors in the background laughing. She says that she's burnt her master and this so it would make sense for him to learn so fast. Sadly the protagonist surprises her. He makes the same sequence of movements and stop the wood sword inches from his face. The girl is surprised. And wonders how he understood the concept just by looking around. There had been belief that he can't replicate the attack completely. Because so far he has been too focused on mixed concepts. He did because he thought he could only kiss Veronica. By combining them at that moment Ben takes off his coat to be more comfortable then declares that he can kiss Veronica by strengthening his back. So now he feels after replicate the cross-fatal attack. Jon is sailed to watch the series of blows after that the protagonist tries to catch his back. And she says that there is no reason to try so hard and it faces him to later when he faces a difficult bone panic sadly. Sulfur tabs of the system appears in front of him. He realizes that he has just increased his stats just by brandishing the sword a few times on the first screen. The system says that he has understood and absorbed the concept of penetration. So Dimension has also been absorbed as a sub-concept of martial arts. The last notification shows that he has learned and internalized the concept of martial arts. The protagonist was very happy with how much he can in just one train. Sadly another notification appears informing him that his stats have skyrocketed. The protagonist is shocked because the penetration is key. With a concept he just won and is already at level 16 edition, so the menship did not increase for anything. Balin remembers that he eliminated sulfur cobles and nothing changed but now he saw the menship has increased to 20 his combat skills half also doubled overall. The boy wonders how this is possible. Sadly and approaches and complains that he late hustle and that he had none for practice martial arts. Balin tries to explain that he really never did. He just did what she had told him and it worked. The girl doesn't believe it and says that if people only learned in the first class they would need teachers. The protagonist says had clean with his soul. But says that maybe he learned fast because she is very good at teaching. The statement made the girl very embarrassed and her cheeks turned red. Because und that for the first time watch her movements he felt the depth behind them deserved mediudif marche the protagonist could testbres ذكر. She preferred to turn her back so as not to show that she was embarrassed man soon says that I knew he left her teaching. An intends to bow with the jelly elixir that she liked but you replace that this does not make up for what she took to. The protagonist tests if she's serious and questions what she needs the vicar laughs because her plan works she then kisses and Jessica smile. And says that he doesn't have to read but makes it clear that in the future he will figure out how to buy her ban is surprise. Because he has never seen such a smile on this curly awesome letters it has normal mood and says that they need to go to the next class the next mom. The girl activates her teleportation and disappears the protagonist stands there thinking at himself that she can also have adorable expression. The scene changed to tail and let both walking through the gym courtyard and fiddle with their cell phones suddenly a key bumps into Rachel and pushes her back. The girl gets a fight the blue had stood tasks where she is from Rachel simply barely the fears occurred that she can't give a whole. Let soon intervenes and says that Rachel is in the same class as him so he questions what the key would the stood gets annoyed by let said intervention. And starts cursor the protagonist and the black-eyed career at the bless of the next class he says he hopes it's not too late. And she replies that she thinks they are on time at that moment the key who is trained to be a fate starts to live and translate to be careful the protagonist says fine. What happened between him and those keys a little later the co-bit in the class the teacher says that the history of the Academy does not begin when the director founded the school. But from the moment the teller appeared in the primordial diminish suddenly someone takes a picture of Rachel those same keys or we saw watch the class. They comment among themselves that this girl should be here the one with blue hair says that he would give a queen's life. If she decided to marry him Rachel feels these looks from afar and feels uncomfortable ban and later also bothered protagonist clear. Because the teacher doesn't do anything with the tone of face of the student it is impossible not to hear what the porcelain man thinks for a moment. And wonders if the old man is ignore them or can't hear them suddenly let loose his patience and cause the teacher's attention. He complains that the leader students or make a noise and it is difficult to concentrate in class so he asks if the old man can do anything teacher asks the students not to make noise. And soon after it is a teach ban and let do not believe that this is all the man will say they didn't starts. That late is nothing but indeed one of them comments that he only could get Rachel's number because this key caught in the war. Other questions if they are a couple that's why this keys interfered the one with blue hair says that the crew has a nice body. And maybe his tape as the conversation and for the Rachel's brush is one of our late cuts his teeth in another he if breaks the pencil he was holding. Ban puts his hand on his shoulder and asks him to calm down late questions how the protagonist can be common these delinquents so in these things. About his classmate Ban asks if his friend is planning that fate them answers that he doesn't have time to waste on uses things. Late is surprised to see that his friend considers it useless the protagonist then balls out his cell phone and says that fatal in class will make the free worse so he calls his friend to see this later realize that Ben is watching a live broadcast on an YouTube. This time from the room he asks so that mean the protagonist feels that he will solve the problem he is doing this broadcast himself. Annex back so the students sit here with the delinquent saucer and late is shocked by laughs threatening the liasis. That the idiot's conversations being recorded and exposed at this moment the case keep talking like if the free was right meanwhile if had a small camera behind the boys. Sadly self-nankit comments but the action of the delinquents start bobbing upon the protagonist screen the case or being called idiots and disrespectful. In addition they also spoke ill of the term someone asked if the teacher won't do anything the protagonist of his scope carefully observes the naked comments. Which for them is both and praise his intelligence for doing this let is also believe and asks if Ben bought the title of history of the Academy. To reach public opinion and both be the superiors the protagonist replies that he wants to make sure the case or ruin the Rachel which is afraid that happen. Sadly one of the delinquents says so kind of comments or this that he is receiving the trio soon realizes that they are being recorded and the blue-haired one orders them to look for the camera the protagonist is sealed in his corner one of the case finds if but when he approaches she disappears into thin air. The blue-haired one assumes that this setup was made by late at that moment the teacher approaches with an anchor in his ear. An stethoscope is the someone that was making noise before he then orders everyone to leave the key or cues. Saying that he is trained to solve a problem he was recorded without his permission. The teacher doesn't care about this and it is that everyone should leave. The next moment the old man expels the students with his bear. The teacher throws to the rest of the students and says that the scope will receive for a whole year, so if someone would have this and just disrupt the class boundaries. That if an assistant teacher has enough bear but he still thinks that if is not enough for work that Rachel is also not satisfied. At this moment Rachel Phineas Bex shakes a gentle smile while thanking the boys for defending her honor. Carol also adds that this punishment should be enough. Bell replies that he really did do much. He doesn't think he is that strong and that's why he thought of another way to deal with this situation. So there is no need to thank him. His friends give a smile please that the free throw that the next day in the train. The protagonist team had the bad luck of practice in the submarine as the cope of the delinquents while it was called Rachel hides behind Ben in fear. The blue hierarchy approaches and it asks what he wants this time. The leader calls him insect and demands that he explain what happened yesterday. The red-haired one says that thanks to that damn broadcast yesterday his semester score is around the key in the mask adds that now. They all been refued by his friends. The protagonist looks around and notices that the teacher is sitting. This one also looks like he would do underneath. The blue hierarchy gets annoyed and asks so the boy just sadly quickly changes his mood. His eyes turn black. He then increased a bit and calls everyone barbarians. The cope goes crazy and interprets this as the worst sword and the word the leader pulls a knife close to his face. And starts trying to embarrass late saying that he is from a lower dimension. Sadly a thought flies by and lands gracefully that son. The protagonist and the cruiser surprise system so notifies that Ben has discovered a new concept. The sword exudes intimidatory low bar. The blue hierarchy begins to emulate Ben's the sword to the enemy's neck surrenders and is all the can the protagonist realize that his friend has totally changed his aura is different. It seems that Let is offer phone with Anchor and wonders if all this is because of that sword. He also remembers that his system has discovered a new concept at that moment. Let says that it is good that he has recognized his bliss. Meanwhile the leader realizes that he still cannot move his leg because of the pressure. His friends try to do something but they are also afraid. Let calls the teacher and asks what kind of punishment a person receives for sadly taking his classmates with real sword during class. Man thinks for a moment and confusedly replies that the Academy encourages practical fatal so to some extent the cope of delinquents is not wrong. Later replies that this is not exactly what he asked the professor. Then says that he removed a person artifact. Later presents his defense saying that he was only defending himself from an enemy attack. The old man says that there is no way he can deny that he released his energy first. Later replies that this was his means of avoiding damage. The protagonist watches the scene closely. The blonde asks her the teacher intends to deal with the insults that the students met him. The man thinks for a moment and then says he did say any of this. Let cuts his teeth in Anchor and says to finish off the key with blue hair. Everyone looks horrified but sadly he is stopped by a bat on the forward gift by late complaints and the crew tries to explain that he is not as powerful as he thinks. So he can't go and act like this. Protagonist is happy that Late has really been stopped. Meanwhile the teacher leaves an crib and talks to Rachel but her dangerous always. On the other hand Young continues to be right. Late a little later the coop mates in the cafeteria and comments that he thinks they will never be respected. Especially the teachers who always seem to protect students from higher admission. He remembers that he has a fit schedule because of one of these teachers. Late remembers as he says that maybe they can't think but trying to improve the situation based on happens of it last time. The protagonist they can't do this because last time there was almost a bigger problem and it's his jam while the boys continue talking and tells himself that Late's current one is very different from what he saw in the rain. It was as if his friend had suddenly changed, as if someone had burst a bar. And there was still that intimidated sword. At that moment the protagonist tells Late that he wanted him to be honest fan as if his friend can control the bar he show. Before Late gets up from the table and starts to say that he can control himself, the boy claimed that he only did that because he got angry with the lies of the professor. Man asks if that was all the rest and says that lies really are bad but he is not sure if he should believe that Late can control that force. The friend asks the protagonist to test him and assures him that nothing like today will happen. Kenyan says that this is a relief she believes. That things could have turned out very badly if he was no stopped late her I don't it after hearing so much criticism until his band that she started to feel. Did face that teacher يمينك a few days ago but there killers they believe that they continue like this school life will get more difficult. So as a represented she thinks that the protagonist should think of something for their future the crosses she is will that listen to him is taken by surprise. He remembers that over the last few days while from school life he definitely began to realize what was bothering his team the mentality of superiority. Based on birth or strength and especially the strange contempt directed at the lower dimensions and كذبته. The protagonist wonders what outsiders like them could do in a place where these things are considered common sense with no idea what do. He asks the co what they think needs to be done to can the favor of a within a specific later place that he believes that conversation can bring people together and on their huntings that bear is more effective place that are both wrong. He then makes the camera send to the cub and says that what he needs to can the favor of a cub is his beers the next day. The cub meets a new nafs if they'll really conduct make a channel that shows their daily lives the protagonist places. And that's that where he comes from is a very calm with bid relationships they can understand that what they need to do is bid the image. And show it to the general public but takes the cell phone will actually help with the latent he says that when you bid the image in people's mind. It creates a sense of familiarity so it can help the co-play tasks with a half-tack if they are looking for respect and admiration. Banner replace that it is not a strategy it is a real combat match at that moment you ask fleet construct to start featuring كمتها. Banan rotil follow the fate happily late traced catabunes thoughts to mock him calling him weak she says that it makes sense why he was so impressed with that strange fact. Last time the Crodan encourages him to do his sword if he needs strength let hears this and cuts his teeth in Africa. Balin continues recording with his cell phone and says that things are going very well but she looks at the fate a little scared she doesn't understand. Hal this can make their school life easier the protagonist replace that he won't change things immediately but it will have an effect. The fight between these two would continue firstly but says that he intends to show everyone that his scope is not something they can handle the new is not good or but there is a see. At this point the protagonist is Rachel that her beauty is too precious for her to receive things like this the girl is shocked by this unexpected compliment. Ben says that the girl is more beautiful when she smells she has a face that can conquer anyone wherever she goes. So it's a shame to waste on raise Rachel hears this and gives a she smells she feels that would never Ben says something this thing will happen meanwhile. Back to the fate Yoon asks where the keys run and says that so far it was just warm up late back the protagonist says that. Class 11 has followed bands recommendation recorded everything from his day if a bad sub he to the videos or posted on their channel. Qudra the response was more than positive the audience began to follow the day-to-day they watched the fate and wondered if it was real the protagonist. Also recorded the entertainment of his team with some camps and if some conversations with teacher Yamain the dish viewers always backed to see Rachel. Claiming that she was very cute the audience was loyal and always entered to see the videos until one day the Rebel channel posted the fan. Informing that the next day her cube was going to start claiming the terror as we saw in the previous video class 11 follow bands recommendation. And all the videos were posted on their channel Qudra the protagonist also recorded his team's entertainment with some cams. And if some conversations with teacher Yamain viewers would be Rachel claiming that she was too cute the public was low. And always came to see the videos until one day the Rebel channel posted different informing that the next day his cube would start claiming the data. The next day the protagonist screams that he can't believe the Rebel channel gained more than 10 subscribers. In just one day they celebrate their popularity while teacher Yamain watches them she brillies the class and that they were very smart now stood out of created entertainment content. And now if she would think about it Ben is if happy that the first trend video has become so popular Yamain says that this is very good. And as they remember that 2 days the claimed that the students kept this information mind and have already worn comfortable clothes. Except for the protagonist who was still in his school uniform Rachel suggests wear something that helps with movement. During the battle the teller Ben had thought about it because where he left there were no specific clothes that fit so he just the tie of his uniform. and says he feels comfortable anyway means that if everyone is ready they can co-share airport land the door teleported the The class is quickly recognized by the other students as members of the rebellion. The look surprise at the famous scope meanwhile Rachel seems already but the bless. Yamin says that this is the interest the terror has nothing to worry but the terror has been known before a few years but the order of entry is by series. Just what in line the protagonist is happy that the door the first enter Yamin says thanks to their visibility at that moment. Late Satishan is directed a group of boys and he realizes that the kids are not happy with his brother's pencils that it must be a group of fans. Who also subscribed to the channel answers he can see that there is not only a look of admiration here someone is exoded a murder soul. Yanko's bans Satishan and he said he already knows there are only 4 days left for the duel with the hatter that the opponent feels decisive. So Ban knows that too and within that time he needs to reach a level that Rick has never reached the teacher cadres class 11 and says that the time has come. She wanted the exploration of the alert and before the weekend to ensure the safety of each one so she asks if they know how long they will stay. Ben asks if the cube has any changes and that answer that the plan is the same the protagonist how the robot camera and tells the teacher. That class 11 will spend 2 nights and 3 days there will return as soon as possible Yamin wishes everyone could like and the students are covered with a lay. Ben says that his ancestors can hope for his victory the scene changes to the past when Yamin gives some instructions to her students she realizes that they are wanted at film say. User the autonomous artifact Ben intended to record the situation said the terror that small robot was also a self-operated camera created following the footsteps of Eve and Lilith. Rachel is delighted with the little one let check the information in the interface and asked wait says that the turn structure of the terror changes. Yamin explains that each floor is called a room and when you clear the room or overcome the trap space itself moves the challengers to the next room this means that the more changes. The further they are rifle and said the terror so they will not be able to go back to the previous room each time a room changes. The monsters that appear are different and stronger the same cause for traps Yan was looking hearty comfortably with something appeared in her mind. She asks what will happen if any of them are murdered and said the terror this was the death of all the students but they did have the courage to ask. Yamin gives a smile and says that this is a critical question but they don't have to worry because all the challengers eliminated. In certain areas repair at the enters of the toilet and Ban breathe a sigh of relief the protagonist if they will have to start from the first floor. If that happens Yamin replaces no as soon as they enter the toilet the student will register the shift so they can go back where they left off. She shows the bent and says that this is why the student is so important they should not forget it and Ban or confident. Well you remember that the teacher said earlier that in some areas of the terror it is impossible for students to be eliminated if there is any challenge really. Where students are more likely to be murdered if this is true it means that the terror does not care to safety Ben had no thought of it. And looks with interest at the teacher written for an Yamin is forced to Brazilianske furnish informs that there are. Indeed there is a situation that will put their lives at risk it is impossible to return to life that were eliminated in this place. The scene changes to the current moment class 11 has already started claiming the terror the first monster is called Ghoster it is a kind of slime. That defiles all the challengers couldn't defeat Sephiroth in half with his sword and attack so the other side with magic meanwhile. The protagonist tries to play the same strategy used in other dimensions but for some reason can't extract the concept from that place. Yunaf Frith Razokayan Ben reveals that he just lost concentration she remembers that he asked for time to find out something and if he succeed. The protagonist reveals that he was trying to extract the slime but it did work useless that it would be good if he could extract the concept from the tar. Ban asks her not to try to kiss her abilities in advance at that moment a giant slime appears behind the universe consume her. The girl did not notice the bruises and need the protagonist's help not to be deferred a crowd flies and destroys the monster you recognize the seconds that chase. The slimes are defeated in second she did know how this would act on the battlefield and is happy with her performance. Protagonist says that it can be noisy and you says that it can be louder than that at that moment Rethal attacks the enemy with his caused destruction throughout the area. You managed to find a noise bigger than if this says that the base of the battle is hidden for detecting the enemy but no one is the Ban defends Rachel. Salif that her fate still is completely instinctive rich and they continue to attack the monsters ويان كمبلن زبط ذينويث. A few minutes later was that room واحد was killed and it was very easy sadly feels dark energy building up. And was them not to let the record though let us if she sent the breaths of a late monster and she replaced that maybe. The boy then asked for help from Bandy Brotakins quickly activates the infantry reasons he waited a long time for. He looks at and searches Namsa and that the obelisk is up front with that thinking to she uses her chaos to destroy the stone wall. Clad of death comes out of the college late Umbra stretch knocked down the obelisk before the late monster could fully materialize at that moment. Rachel takes the monster's enhancement core the Brotakin thinks this at to this suspicious and tries to touches her killer changes cause of fear and ban. The girl looks at him within a stays while holding the core ban asks why her killer has darkened the crew's sail. He realizes that Rachel used the hot furnace its burned ability motions as fueled killing bar the Brotakin thinks that this career Rachel looks the more her will change killer. At that moment the girl approaches and asks if she looked like a monster and Smith answers though she seemed quite to sorry Rachel is not sure she can continue. Yon enters the conversation and asks why she is so worried about losing control if this happens if Wraith will be fine because she will be murdered. Before she even causes any damage Rachel begins to tremble in fear the protagonist finds it funny but tries to calm the situation. He says that you cannot do that because they will have to go back to the beginning of the tour you replace that if Rachel loses control. The three of them will be forced to call on she thinks it would be better if only the protagonist can bend her in the exploration let feels rejected. And Ban doesn't want to leave Rachel at he tells her that he will find a solution to abandon her is not option the crew is happy here with and cross her hand. The protagonist is embarrassed and says that he is only doing the job of leader of the crew and complains that Ban is too keen. And late traced come the situation at that moment a portal bears and the portal teleported from أثناء. Does it feel much difference from the previous room because here there is also moss and Witchburn analyze the core of the late monster that Rachel eliminated the dim stats or Wraith code. With that thinking twist the protagonist copies the concept of statistics and replaces it himself by an imbued fusion in his sword and no sophadif. This next trend sadly in Christian sneaks up to brush the protagonist still saying that she should to brush like that and suggests that he transcends more. So as not to be scared and let interferes in the fight and warns them to be careful the monsters in room أثناء or about to bear. So it's best to take the situation more seriously at that moment like can't even finish speaking because he's attacked by a red mist likely and sense so fast. And she uses magic to cut the attack in half the monsters evil's bird that torques the magic of rooms late says not to let your code do. Jan suggests later ban take care of the combats in room أثناء let and rotilder against it because it is too dangerous for Jan it is a cat idea. Since the protagonist has a due next week and this would serve to improve his skills the crew manages to leave Ban and answer his wishes and says he will take care of it. Late tries to stop his friends and that it is too dangerous Ban replace that Yun is right it would be a horse. For the three of them to themselves that will he just watches Rotil and let accept the protagonist's decision but let makes it clear that he will interfere if there is a problem Ban thanks him and cause the Blackhead crew answers that he will use energy that expects her to help later. The curse may answers that she's sure he will study if he tries to hold at that moment the protagonist raises his hand forward and cause if. The snake turns into a web and starts shooting at the entity the evil spirit tries to resist the attack meanwhile it is enchanted with the web. And wonders if it is a base of equipment from the protagonist's sword it seems too powerful because this blade that destroys the monster. So prior to the sword attack Lake does not understand how the protagonist has it because only soldiers from his country could be held like this before. That those multiple could hand the secondary assassins and if frustrated assassins is also surprised. She deals very well with martial arts but she feels that the protagonist's attack equals her skills the naked board for Ban is that he doesn't have much perception. Then he can be caught off guard by knocking a blind spot Yun was right because at that moment the evil spirit bears on the protagonist's back late and Rotil run into his direction. Scream has none Ban and notice the attack and Teman takes his sword the coquette and the evil spirit Rachel's relief. As late asks where the sword came from Ben's no artifact is a long sword with the best stats that could exist in that late has never seen the protagonist fight with a sword. And is the way he handles been replaced that it's not as good as late and you the blackade crews happy here this the protagonist go back to destroy the clones. Life by the evil entity keep shooting ben use the sword defeat this burden to suffer both the door of any clears the second room. The protagonist hopes that this was the last if been the last birth with the chen and the protagonist decides trusts a little the monster cans a few more minutes of life. Because if it's eliminated in another room will be but the challengers won't think but rebuild how they will act. You notice by the remains of the last clones that Ban is already using the skills he can in the previous room she also realizes by the way the protagonist face. That he has not left a living forth when but is this as her curiosity if more because Ban is fulfilled very quickly so. You tries to free way to find out what skills he has meanwhile it and Rathail Braz Ban's control door the defeat answers that his performance was good the protagonist's surprise. Because he did expect big congratulated by the answers that he will be so much better than other fools who realize that this inset is for him. And stot elegati the they both fit and the protagonist take the opportunity to take a drink from his inventory he starts drinking. While saying that his co-really is a manager and did trust if at break time at that moment they three look at him wouldn't understand where he got the sword from. Yannick uses him of drinking the told by himself and the protagonist defends himself by saying that these things also so that said so anyone could have bought it. Let use a scary look to say that the Lord thirsty ban returns the drink to the inventory and says that it should only be used to. The one who cleaned the room is tired and opens a smell and says that he can leave room that with her the protagonist is against. And the crucial is that she would stray that drink he brought late decides to coat the next room before never fight breaks out between them. The last people's birth is eliminated and a portal bears under the child's feet man closes his eyes and checks his thermostats it's much better than he thought. It's now but effort for a uni academy stood swordsmanship techniques improve when he picked up the sword room أثناء. The protagonist decides that what he has done is improve his swordsmanship more and more because he will fast act in the next trainer will be increase the level of martial arts. Is enough to defeat the enemy although rank is much higher than him and comes the conclude that he can cause the gap between. His level and act so what you can do is Cantonians help but is more important to nurture the skills you already have than to create others. When it comes to in martial arts there is only one person who can help you at that moment the protagonist mentally asks and help him. The boy does not know how to ask her for this and is one of the best when it comes to martial arts and that's why the protagonist feels intimidated to ask her for something he comes the conclusion that he won't be able to do it and he thinks of a circuit alternative but is so lost in his thoughts that he doesn't hear the voice calling his name. Latest thoughts scream as loud as he can and the protagonist finally wakes up different thoughts to tell him to get out of it but looks around and realizes that he is fallen. He spurs and asks where the floor is. Rachel also screams as he falls this time a board of the floor of the third room is made of spearhead and cozive. And manages to use the chance to hold Ruthel before she falls on top of the blaze. The protagonist is also held by his artifact he realizes that the trap was killed exactly at the point of fall and feels a familiar sensation at that moment you tells him to be careful. The protagonist looks surprised at the crew. Who is upside down on the seal realizes again that he will be hit if he continues this position. Sadly Ban hears a blaze noise. The walls of room 3 open and sparsely told him the protagonist wonders what he is going to do. He doesn't want to let Rachel fall down there. The crew starts screaming. In the same second Ben calls for the two artifacts which holds Rachel and Ban takes her in his arms. The bear's protagonist apologies for shaking the crew too much. Rachel replies that if Ruth was fine. Sadly another noise comes out of the walls and the Rose and late counters the first attacks with an axe. Then jumps and soon as the sword cutting the spears the boy is also using his own artifact he doesn't understand. Why he finds such a dangerous trap in room 3 يمين had said that the traps would be until room 20 surely something went wrong. The difficulty sadly increased at that moment. His attention is drawn to Ban late wonders where the protagonist caught another artifact from. Meanwhile Lilith advances at full speed change the direction of the attack but Ban realizes that he is not working and thinks of another alternate. Rachel takes the opportunity to hack him later. The protagonist is taken by surprise and wishes the heroes continue traveling and when hits Lilith Ban decides to do some maneuvers Cut of the figure of the attack he manages to contain and later broaches brother has no word fact protagonist asks of these ones all. The friend replies that he has a question to ask first he left this thing is also from his older friend that Lilith the protagonist replies that it is a floating basic. Then notice the disappearance of the fourth member of the cube and asks where she is there later replies that it's been a long time. Since he's seen Yunan assumes that she's already fallen into some trap and that she's been caught so easily in fact Yun's act through the house. In an obvious direction let us flicker when he thinks this attack will end the protagonist read in a manual that there is a time for challengers to this. And pass the level but he does know the exact direction or how it works so he asks let to investigate one side while he looks at the other. The two Cerbert and the room opens no was the attack been traced to identify the pattern of activation of the traps when he realized that all the heroes or congratulate the blonde boy was the first movable in the protagonist notice the pattern of the trap he was the first target long was reached. Because they both moved recklessly and to call of themselves stupid will the car notice the hero who let the protagonist boys there. That man it hurt his artifact answer that he needs to tell everyone to stop unnecessary movements immediately at that moment. The hero in his hand begins to disappear but his surprise wondered if he was able to read the concept of this thing that's strange because in the first room it didn't work. The boy tries to find a raise when suddenly something comes to his mind and he decides it is if it really is a concept if the sword that was all they can. And as soon as he touches the sword it also disappears the concept and is decapitated the protagonist was right to read the concept however the concept that Bedna is completely different from what he thought suddenly Rachel does his attention to let who was caught by surprise by a giant with the blonde boy managed to escape from the water. And blames himself for letting his code down he imagined that only swords and arrows came out of the traps at that moment later felt his register to the Tbari. And he assumed that there was something mixed in the water the roof opens and more arrows are pointed in his direction. This time later knows he won't be able to answer the next trap so he leans on his sword waiting for the worst to happen. Protagonist quickly leaves Rachel behind and advances with Lilith towards later Rachel was left alone because Ban was going to risk everything at this. If his idea was right he apologized and said he could track her into it Rachel accepted and hoped he would be find the protagonist touches the water. And activates the concept of acid and with a cold light comes out of his hands and he says that he already understood why the concept absorbed earlier was decapitation. And note so the tests his idea finally returns to the center of the room at that moment she sees the protagonist at inside speed. And breathing fire while for she cause the coldest cat let the protagonist considers that touch any substance at the moment it manifests. Determines the concept that can be found that's how he found the concept of decapitation in the sword at that moment a run of sharp arrows for all night. Protagonist screams that he will deal with it he activates his infantry raise and let says a late bear under his body the recognizes that he is the protagonist. And is afraid of him being hit by the arrows to ban focus on the concept and raises his hand forward trying to read the intention of the projectiles his reader board is all quickly burst by the trap. Lilith and Ban gets closer and closer to the trap leaving late scared the protagonist tries to absorb most of the evil energy that has in the projectile. To break the rush Ban lose the objective sulfur swords and spears begin to disappear Ban holds all energy in his hand and the next moment an explosion happens it was exactly as he planned. Rachel feels the base of the projectile's disappear and celebrates happily realizing that the protagonist succeed Ban finally lands on the ground with Lilith. After the attack was interrupted later and towards him asking if he is okay the boy takes a deep breath and says that it was too close. He holds the rope in his hands without the barrel left from the projectile's late is surprised that he has directly interfered in the trap. And as if it is a new skill suddenly the conversation interrupted by another attack this time. It is so fast that the boys have no time to escape thanks to the cross the attack stopped Jan and Rachel jump on them to defend them from the arrows. Jan scored the protagonist for continuing with this reckless habit he said that he will get into serious trouble if he does stop. Benu curly thanks the crew for their help and tells Late that he kept getting into so many problems and if lost Foxic. A portal bears under the feet of the challengers and Rachel is relieved that this was the last trap meanwhile Jan and Late start a new fight deep down Ban finds it funny. The way they always have a disagreement for the same reason Carson he is happy because and then the group helps each other and is at risk. It is proof that the team is working well together. Confesses that she was waiting for the right moment to act late and ban or surprise. The girl reveals that she only did it because she wanted them both to be indebted to her, so she lives. Of course she will change in the future, but so that his feeling of camaraderie was just lodged before no failure or teleported room 4. This time the seal as our protagonists scared that at least they will not be attacked from above before with the cob talks. A dark mist forms behind them but notice. And quickly use his can't shoot that finale for nothing happens to the enemy. It screams that there are spiders from the tower, a unique monster that appears in any room of the tower. Regardless of level, the protagonist realizes that they were caught because they correctly dodged tackled both the sword in front of his body. Answer is that it seems that in this case a web is not effective enough. The spiders in the tower are random and there is no way to predict what the weak point is, so he efficient help this time the crew replace that she will take care of the protagonist casanically. Because he did not expect that such strong monsters would appear. Room 4 orders them to stand behind her and tells Ben to watch closely, because it will show him what he is looking for. The blackhead carcass is spell on her hand and sends a blast of energy to the spider's bones or consumed and thrown. Some screams are heard and Ben looks surprised at the blast of energy, and attack was stronger than if bullets and left most of the spiders knocked. The protagonist appreciates this skill and uses he will leave the rest home. After all, he doesn't want to take all the credit. Ben asks Fate to protect his back and Rahel to watch the seal in case something happens. Then he approaches the spiders with the sword in his hand. The protagonist understands that you let him finish off the enemy because he knows that he would recover the concept in it. She doesn't seem to be such individualistic. Ben performs the first attack leaving late and Rachel already the bond is so strong that the protagonist cannot lower the sword over his body. Suddenly the spiders is terrified and tries to attack. Ben rotates and then picks up forward momentum, hitting the enemy in the head. Late and Rachel are left on their hand. The protagonist considers that attack then rotate is not the best option because more spiders are appear. Suddenly he remembers something and calls himself indeed for having forgotten. Ben takes that off his book the orb he took from room 3 and says that now is the perfect time to use the orb with the level 20 ability. Is imbued into the sword. The artifact evolved immediately after it had perfect compatibility with the user. The long sword had a significant increase in the stats. Now the protagonist carries the most powerful artifact. Destroy those spiders. This time just one kit is enough to defeat the enemies. That can't hide his surprise face. Yun just watches in sales. Meanwhile the protagonist seems to note something strange. He thought the kit would come at cleaner. Late notice the spiders accumulate and cause Rahel for help. Yun is almost sure that for a brief moment the protagonist has imbued something into his soul. Since now he can cut through enemies that he could touch before. The power of Ben's sword is overall, and he also seems to have improved his sword's mission. His skill have been improved without relying solely on his power. All of this was noticed by Yun with her considerable duels. She understood that normally when someone strengthens their web or gets a powerful sword it ends up sooner like in the unlike Ben who adapted Wiki. The crew thinks that if it continues like this he will achieve the tools of getting on his own. She did would interfere in that sequence, but felt that it was a waste to use that immense sword with weak spiders. Yun became known as the greatest prodigy in the martial world after overcoming the three calamities, but now she thinks she's stupid for standing in front of someone whose talent makes her past sympathetic. Deep down Yun does feel like stopping the protagonist, so she makes the decision to make it her own. Suddenly Ben feels a bad energy on her back and looks from one side to the other looking for the enemy. Later thought happened and Ben realized that he felt some goosebumps. Yun stares behind as if he had nothing to do with it. The protagonist asks if she won't use the energy plastic and the crew replies that he's backtracking loud and Ben says that she would get that trick. Late finishes the last monsters and sells relief that the place has finally been cleaned. Meanwhile Yun and Ben fight over the sword. Suddenly everyone is interrupted by external message that arrives in the system and asks because something like this has arrived. Now the three challengers stay together while Rachel looks at it aborted. That appear in front of her. Late seems incredulous at the message asking everyone to leave the tower. The protagonist fears that something has come wrong. To make this sad request answers that the message came directly from the director and as that he doesn't have a good feeling. But he doesn't intend to leave the room till someone explains the reason for this message. Suddenly Rachel swings and Ben looks back. The portal is finally notes And I see the amount of spider now release the reason for the director's emergency message the challengers have no choice but to retreat. ينتف the teleportation bent and I'll have the bad news the student code is simply not working Albany is that the forum prison. And later remember something that Professor Yamin said about a phenomenon where if student can be murdered permanently at that moment. The spider began to emerge from the board late and nutshell or the first advance in the middle of the deadly battle Ben does not believe that the teacher's predictions came true. Yamin said that there would be a high probability of dimension pirates instead of the protagonist. Did not know what dimension pirates were and she summarized by saying that it was in further the problem is that his abnormal infrared causes an oracular phenomenon. This means that if an oracular phenomenon happens the academy can guarantee the safety of the student so the rules inside the tower or distorted and the ways that rules has become dangerous. The number of monsters multiplies uncontrollably and thousands of other problems appear that's why Yamin asked them to keep in mind that if this happens the academy can't interfere. Characteristic in oracular phenomenon is the worst thing that can happen to a challenger. Unfortunately the teacher's word turned out to be real at this moment the cope faces great difficulties. Cut of that teller relief the alternative by find na list escaped a loaders by the orchard by the spider. And late was that he does not know how long they will continue to come reach and see that the spider has already entered this room as there are so many that answers that these things same and the sheer their hand and launches a blast of energy. Letting the strikes the bonds and they are thrown late prepares the sword and asks the crowd continue the attack the protagonist no suitors. That dozens of spiders have already been murdered by Jan's hand that is also mannequined for certainly the two will be quite warned to the act now. At that moment Rachel uses his closed track the spiders her is already almost all consumed by black the protagonist knows that. Rachel was talking about it but if her heart changes completely it will be a nightmare scenario Ben wonders what the worst case. Her thoughts are interrupted by sheer first Rachel as best and says that the crew is lose of control but they can't reject Rachel's help. Because the scared more and more dangerous Ben takes the sword out of the inventory and tells her to don't hit vision trust while he caused how those things. The crew can't hide her happiness at receiving that drink but she asks the protagonist sure can handle. He laughs at this question and then takes the pen out of the crew Ben tells her to look carefully and throws the explosive at the invader. Rachel and let stop for a moment the crowd goes door the ride after explode takes over the bless Rachel and later forced retreat. Let asks what this bears and the protagonist replies that he tried how to create this and he asks his friend trust a little. Because now he is going to attack with Rachel since the crew seems to still have a lot of energy and decide to leave Rachel because she is too unpredictable tough. In addition it is necessary for you to rest because more monsters may appear and she is essentially the protagonist advance toward the spiders with little steadily. The system interface bears note find that the bloodthirsty boys of the executioner though sword has increased 15 ban surprise. Because he had done nothing with the sword the system had that he fairly understood the concept of cat and the depth of the cat has reached level 9. At that moment the blood of the sword turns red the protagonist does not know how strong this bloodthirsty boys is but decides it is. He hands the sword from side to side cat and the further man is embarrassed by the trajectory of the sword now it seems to reach much further. The protagonist continues the attack with thinking about what just happened to his sword he assumes that the bloodthirsty boys extend the range and distance of the attack. The next part is that the sword consumes a lot of red liquid from the protagonist he realizes that he can't use it off. Later on as swords range or the emanation from the sword band challenges the subject asking what is his informed. That the girl is exterminated some monsters may be better to help her the protagonist tries to stop it from calling that he realizes that he's already rested enough. And can help in addition it seems that the battalion of spiders has decreased you increase that the flow of monsters has stopped late says that normally when a monsters was stops. It's because he lost the battle or something stall cares but to be Rachel continues the attack until she realizes that there is no longer any spider. She stopped for a moment and another portal forms this time the boss spider appears the protagonist kiss and cry because the teacher said that monsters like this only bear 50 ناس he still has to realize that the free won't wrong the protagonist talks toward the boss. And is held by late Benas him focus on the late that is had the voices that he does it just have a high-level monster. Deal with the protagonist as so he is talking about and when he turns around he notices another boss spider behind them. Nalada yorser and the bay to late monsters lated spurs will you drink has drunk quietly the protagonist realized to let that Rachel has lost control. The curl attacks the monster hide on with her clothes later raise and answers that maybe it's better than asks his friend to accompany Rachel on differently. While he and young coat attack the other monster later Krizan runs towards Rachel Ben holds the sword wonder what he will do he thinks that to start shooting the big monster. It will be necessary to use bloodthirsty boys Ben can't come to the need sig and you release so she says that he knows he can't win but he still refuses the task for help. The curl careth very close to the protagonist says and says that he is very bad Ben is embarrassed by the broadshear throws the drink and says that it is not bad. Then boils the sword and says that she will want more of the thief if the cost is high offers the monster ban is surprised that she is unsheathed the sword. Normally she can do the freeze with her bare hand so he doesn't understand why to use a sword now he assumes that the curl is trained at itself. Jan says that he just doesn't want to get his hands dirty so he should be food ban is embarrassed by the misunderstand. The truth is that the protagonist was right and tells himself that he hopes a simple move is enough for him to understand Latin comes from the soul. And she asks Ben to watch carefully the protagonist could focus on the curl because he heard a familiar noise he looks towards the circuit spider. And realizes that late is gone through trouble Rachel has really lost control and is prevented late from defeating the monster the curl pushes the blood with her clothes. Later in the fall of Rachel turns her attention to the monster she looks completely out of control the protagonist. Sally realizes that the freeze has become a machine cause his attention and asks if he is not paying attention to her Ben tries to tell her what's going on. And the curl interrupts him she says that the freeze will be fine if he focuses on her at that moment you lowers the sword and the enemy is split in half. It only took a single swing of the sword though a simple move performed by the martial arts prodigy curl the protagonist felt that the swing of that sword could defeat the world. Yon finishes the attack and Ben system appears displayed and his achievements the protagonist instantly understood advanced techniques. And his better control increased thanks to the skill he managed to understand a part of a very powerful and complex martial concept and the depth of his soul has reached 390. And martial art has reached 97 the protagonist realizes that Yon is so powerful that just a glimpse of her martial art was enough to increase her stats. The system doesn't stop not find her swordsmanship has also taken a big jump in points the protagonist assumes that Yon has enhanced his attack. The concept here understood the elite Barban wonders how a burst can infuse something so murderous into his soul. The protagonist gets lost in his thoughts and when tries to talk to him sadly she closed his face and asks if the bow was able to sit carefully. The protagonist gets scared and she asks what happened and scolds her again for getting so close when he is distracted and changes the subject and hands the spider cord him. The protagonist finds it suspicious for the cult gift him since she was the one who defeated the monster and realizes that it is a reward. And it faces him to accept suddenly let he is for the two to stop fighting and come help him they must hurry because Rachel is gone crazy. The cult just came on top of the spider the protagonist did think she would lose control like that after her heart door cancels that late looks completely useless. Poor boy caught in the spider's web she says that the best thing just left late there and would for Rachel to finish him off the protagonist cell. That only one burst can stop Rachel he looks at Yon and expects her to do something but the black-eyed girl replies that she has already done her part in the work. Ben knows how to make her change her mind and says that or in the middle of an oracular phenomenon this means that if any of them are eliminated. There is no way to guess what will happen to the rest of the team you realizes that he is right the girl begins to search. And says that she will keep that best entertained while they deal with the spider the protagonist celebrates that his plan worked but his mood soon changes. When he realizes that he will have to defeat the spider and cast a spell near Rachel's face to get his attention and then say that he wants to have a lot of fun with her Rachel's after almost being hit and jumps towards the end the black-eyed girl. Laughs that he managed to get her attention Rachel destroys the crowd after his landed and tries to hit his clothes on you the attacks are unsuccessful. And the martial art knocks Rachel to the ground the cross screams in Ben and the ground below forms a howl with the impact you stands in front of her. As if she's still full of energy actually skeleton and clear here the crew for Taraz best the protagonist realizes that sensor catens. Yoniel that it's no time to be distracted by craze with her and looks at her own problem hell he doesn't know exactly how to overcome this and himself by correctly so his first attack. And he has so she would say sadly this spider traced hit him the protagonist repeats in time and let us freeze Razuka. Until that moment this spider was already well injured but still had the energy to fight the protagonist themselves that he can't lose it injured monster. Bears from the portal in the form of Action and traps all of the monsters both let ask her hated this spider universe this and say was covo. Rachel realizes the distraction weapon takes advantage of the fact that his laser mobile. To add the thirsty boys to the sword the blade takes on another killer the protagonist handles the attack within his range late wonders if this will work. You think the attack is too low to eliminate it has to be buff the headband releases to let that the range is too short in addition. The bloodthirsty boys was not activated correctly the sword has some flaws at that moment if begins to cuff and one of the last scabs. Protagonist realizes that he has no choice but to use both cutting and bloodthirsty boy skills at the same time sadly. This spider attacks and a flash of light bears in the middle of the Killigian looks afraid of the worst half of happened and it screams the name of the scared protagonist. Thick this but solely manages to reduce the impact by protecting himself with the sword he forced the ground holding his own. The protagonist thought he would not resist the moment the spider attacked and changed the anarchy of the blade if he had received that damage head on. Both the blade and his arm would have been broken. The protagonist does not know how he managed to attack so quickly it seemed that fraction of a second. Stylish for internet he saw no remembers the attack that you asked him to be attention to the system. Note that he has mastered the concept of leading by dodging the enemy's attack he realizes that it was that blow of you that influenced his sword's mission. The boy leans on his sword to get up and did understand that she wanted to work in a head skill in her martial arts he thought that Yun was just teaching him a move. Out of Keninister but the protagonist decides that he will reproduce his attack he positions the sword in front of his body. And says he will try can this spider use his legs for a attack Ben soon moves the sword said was wet watches curiously. And has a familiar feel of this movement with the trainer of yesterday where martial artists redirect the enemy's attack to the said to stop a damage. Feel free to cause while it can if open up an opportunity for a counter-attack this technique is not used much because most people know. If before character the counter-attack late fears that ban is one of those people so he hopes that a free to cause as the boy blind if he has never wielded a sword before. At that moment Ben notices a retreat from the enemy side and lowers the blade with all the pressure forward then moves toward the side of the spider. And use the sword to redirect his bow he continues making this movement until he kisses but meanwhile Rachel continues the fight with Yan. The girl prepares her clothes the black-eyed girl easily dodges the attack and puts her foot down for her to follow just as on the crown. And you draws her attention to the protagonist she realizes that Ben is using this flow instead of the technique she thought this flow is a martial art. Created the center balance deflect the bonds force most artists don't use it because it has a high chance of going wrong. At that moment Ben manages to hit one of the spiders like Jan admires the effort and skills gone through anyone in his place would be using simpler techniques. Jan has already dealt with more domineering techniques but now she finds it very interesting to observe what Ben is using sadly Russell's quick call in the Haraj. Jan realizes that the crew has finally come down meanwhile it continues task for help get him out of that while Jan ignores the request and looks at the protagonist. Thinking that he will not win if he continues like that she waits for Ben to deflect the opponent's force and counter-attack with equal force at that moment the protagonist picks up momentum. And soon as the sword at the enemy then combines two skills the blade displays a cold let the protagonist jumps above the spider's head. And lowers the sword with all his strength late opens his mouth and shock and you celebrates the opponent is cut in half Ben sits on the floor tear. The system braces him force and says the eternal concept with the external concept and creates a stronger concept. The protagonist bears a sigh of relief telling himself that his succeeds his stats have increased sadly the protagonist is taken out of his thoughts by a face. Asking for help later reminds him that he is still in presence that he can take care of the beast and replace that they would a lot from someone. Who just took the only lit monster late apologies for asking too much on their hand and complains about Rachel's resistance. That he would rather be tied up with that idiot the blonde boy feels if and the protagonist says this a crate and cause if this not materializes in zone. And he has to absorb the concept of this spider web that they'd late the next moment if absorb the web and throws into action. The protagonist picks up if and throws it at Rachel the girl is arrested and tries to resist but it's no use because the chains are reinforced with magic. In addition the chains will get more stuck if he tries to escape. Rachel continues to resist and ends up in an uncomfortable position. At that moment Benson and this things looking at the girl late covers his friend's eyes whispering that he should look at it. The protagonist asks if it's okay for him to see this and late changes the subject because he was very embarrassed and realizes that the room has no chain. If after the monsters are defeated fortunately the chains are refished in combat while the protagonist towards the free one that they stood the code is back in operation. It is the third take the opportunity to get out of her free one increase on suddenly a face bakes to them a frightened energy begins to accumulate and the face as if it was this children. Who passed the test the four challengers or barely feel the pressure exerted by the energy the face says that she can't lift the reward. The energy transforms into a woman she says that she will give the cop the opportunity to make a contract with an offer of 10,000. Meanwhile it said that Yamin waits for her students anxiously sadly a teleportation portal appears in front of her and the challengers leave. Sulfur stones are thrown with the impact the protagonist tries to understand if everyone is okay and it asks where the answer is that this is the returns to the tower. Yamin caused the man checks if they are without injuries or sick would the teacher is very worried the protagonist reassures her. Saying that everyone is fine they are observed by other students who recognize the group that was their ability. Yamin confesses that she was worried because no one left with the evacuation note she asks if something happened inside the protagonist looks at the cube. And yourself and as it what Rachel did and asks the teacher to go to another room first a few minutes later the challengers arrive at the place. Took briefly with Yamin and tells them that class 11 was caught in a miraculous situation after entering room 4. He doesn't understand how it happened right at the beginning of the terror so he asks if there was something that said Yamin gives the sad news that he stood. Unfortunately was eliminated by that said intruder the cop waited is in disbelief at what it heard the teacher say. That the academy is taking care of the situation but the challengers of the same team have not yet overcome what happened the miracular phenomenon was exactly this event. From the beginning the bear diminished was talked no students if the students lose their study code as soon as that are murdered. They will not be able to be resurrected and will be trapped in the tower forever ban asks what happened to the inferior Yamin replace that the escape. And finally joins the conversation and says that it seems to have been planned there are many inferiors trained to claim the tower of Babel. For intruders it is the perfect opportunity to do this when the new students are entered the tower so they can assassinate the talented new students who passed the academy's standards exam. They damage the prestige of the academy and can qualification as claimers maybe this is the reason for the infidels take the student code. It is proof that the academy has Faridion adds that on the other hand the academy will make an excuse in that endure these intruders. It's just another ordeal that fresh must overcome dodge the responsibility Yamin is saddened by words but the girl does not change her statements. For her the academy no longer makes sense there are infidels who blatantly infide the terror that is the phrases of the academy and the academy cannot prevent its own students from being murdered. The girl adds that the claim of being the best academy in Manhwa diminishes seems ridiculous. Her teammates prefer not to interfere because they do the decree that Yun is not wrong the main traces that the girl is misunderstood she defends that the academic uni always protects students but from the moment they enter the tower the responsibility ceases to be the academy they also can't prevent the inferior from entering. Yun can't deal with this answer she thinks that was second the academy shirking responsibility the critics her student idea of her book. And so she wants to hear the teacher tries to stop Yun from leaving if so the critic boss the protagonist as Yamin. That she needs to understand and something else happened inside it her the teacher asks him exactly what happened but doesn't know how to say it and starts to explained that something appeared before they left. Yamin asks what it was later and Rathal or still sailed and trembling with fear will remember the situation. The protagonist says that they have found the constellations or transcendental bosses that observe numerous dimensions. And when they find someone they form a contract these transcendental beings exert influence in that dimension they give powerful magic and spiritual abilities. As well as artifacts but they demand a lot in return if so there are few who refuse the offers of the constellations or undeniably attract. Yamin is surprised and the protagonist shows that the observer of all the sites use a strange face to them he promised back. In exchange for the fulfillment of their orders sadly Yamin screams that this is the miserable and does not understand the reason for the joy the teacher says that it is very lucky. Coming into contact with a constellator on the first day in the terror means that her talents have been recognized and Professor Yamin. Class 11 does seem happy but تأتي with the protagonist tasks with the Academy's positions and relationed contracts with constellations she replaces. The school usually encourages you to take advantage of the opportunity that is the place where the interest in constellation is most concentrated. The teacher keeps saying that this is good news on the other hand the protagonist just thinks that it's unbelievable. That a place like the Academy has no defense against intruders sadly the teacher interrupts his house and asks so. Exactly the observer of all the sites order been replaced that it was another mode quickly changes and the teacher thinks it is a joke. But he understands that Bill would do something like that but says that he contract with basically for them to commit murders against each other. The last one standing would say in the contract that there is for let an hotel being sailed to this time the constellations. That the Lord Children of Surprise of potential then promised to counter any wish for the two that bring the heads of the other two Timothian and Banu the people. That the constellation wanted to say a contract which insisted that she would help pass all the flaws can't promise or math and that one of the challengers would accept. Kevin Rab a friend had in exchange for bear was the most lunatic thing the protagonist had ever heard at that moment and stepped forward. Ban quickly called his name and the crossed she wanted below her race shone brightly in the direction of the constellation. That protagonist tells all this to the teacher Yamin is surprised by the cross courage bear replace that you. You stole his energy to drive away the constellation that superior being just wanted to use them as a to the protagonist how the situation of the tower will be. Yamin replies that the Academy will monitor the roof of the tower on the weekend to catch the intruder so they can't interact this week. The protagonist hoped he can experience during this day's fate with a recount Tuesday but now he has been bought from claiming the tower knew he has no choice but to run alone. The protagonist soon remembers something and materializes his recorded artifact he says he is thinking of report what happened in the tower. In a report along with the records he captured the teacher says he can do this and says she would stick together with the other members of the team. To watch together the protagonist thinks it's not a good idea the other members are not happy with the school management. In abandoned them inside the tower at the risk of their life so they don't want contact with anyone from the Academy's disciplinary committee. In addition everyone is physically and psychologically exhausted Yamin says that she understands and will strive to make sure that nothing like this happens again next week so she hopes that none of them think badly of the gym late says that they need to rest. Yamin tries to could be but hotel and let teleport before she finishes speaking the protagonist is about to do this. When he is interrupted Yamin remembers that the constellator wanted contract with two members of class 11 she question. If the constellation specifically asked Bananian to eliminate Rachel and let protagonist has a reality check when he remembers that this was their request. He realizes that the observer was not just trained to beat them against each other the define being ready to want to hotel and let it reach the top of the tower. He referred to them as Yos's brothers while referred to the protagonist and known as beloved children the constellation showed that they would become the best gamers because he could see the radiant talent of the two but for that Habion and Ban needed to finish off hotel and they. A few minutes later the protagonist returned to the dorm room late with sit around the couch shaking his knees. Ban comments that this position seems uncomfortable and says that he can't even imagine Rachel doing something like that late doesn't react to the joke. And as if the protagonist is trying to provoke him by saying that he is unmassive Ban shows that he never thought of something like that. Late says he knows in fact he just wanted to find later first himself as trash and says that it's not worth insulting someone like him. The protagonist did expect find the key so the brass suddenly late says he had the protagonist bear a place that he had some too. The protagonist decided to do something as his friend to break the mood a little bit did help. And he asks Slate to be direct about what his field best made here that if we suggest a complaint let's toss the birth. By telling that he was one of the greatest talents in the world he wasn't missing like an exaggeration but it is a no. His family and everyone admire his techniques they can entrusted him with the secret sword everyone was sure that he could obtain the bar of the Tower of Babel. And would become the final cordial of his dimension thanks to the support late came to the academy full of expectations that the first changed when he heard that Zerfa treat him as a useless but the protagonist thinks that the words of that thing should not be taken seriously later replace that ban only thinks so. Because he was chose but he is just a spectator of the two who were chose by a divine being this transcendental being or much stronger. And more knowledgeable than him so he asks Arion and the protagonist could so easily reject the offer. Banu realizes less frustration the fact that he refused this because he finds this type of purpose absurd he is not will it stronger. By eliminating his comrades let's still think that the protagonist only thinks so because he has offered him the bar but he probably wouldn't have been able to reject. As firmly as Ban Orion late would hesitate to eliminate his friends but is not sure if he would keep that choice so now he feels resentful and cannot forgive himself. A little after that night the protagonist finishes taking a shower and realizes that Late has gone to sleep so he hurries to bed at that moment. Late calls his name and apologizes for when the like that he only acted that with that of jealousy the protagonist makes here the late apology. For looking at his frustration and he takes some hot chocolate and leaves it on the table and says could be certain that he will call for will Late thank him and the protagonist leaves the room. He feels that Late has changed a lot since the first time they met at that moment Yun is passing through the hallway when she sees the protagonist. She takes the opportunity to get close to his face when the cancels that she doesn't invade his room and jumps back in free. And as so she's done and the boys dome Yun Max saying Celis answers that it's not a problem if no one finds that Ben traces resistance that a safer place. They both sit on a bench between the male and female dormitory and asks how the bird is Late would have fit. If she heard what he's been called the protagonist called her for talking like that but you says it's the truth for her Late is nothing more than a pathetic birth. With a talent or adaptability Ban replaces that he does create his kid in swordsmanship and also has many other skills. Yun thinks that the kid bends on the sword his king combatants next his special skills come from the sword with this. He will be no different from a useless fool the protagonist without Fluthian's how sure the girl does not stop saying that Late is a code for nothing who release at the coach moments. And instead of this conversation but Yun says that maybe it doesn't make sense to tell together the faith will be lost if one day. Late lose credence but Rachel is also called do this the Brussels but if it continues like this there is no more cope. Ben doesn't understand if you would said the more is already knew the protagonist decides to be sincere and says that she is not very different from Rachel. And Late the girl looks surprised as Ben says that she has been acting strangely since she met the divine being she treated the teacher badly. Yun is embarrassed because she did imagine that his accusations would turn against her if Ben discovered this using his skills. And he replies that he doesn't need the boy takes hot chocolate from the inventory and asks if Befrith is okay with her and accepts the hot chocolate. As if she will receive the most amazing gift in the world she is happy to know that he cared but care feels that she only acted that way. Because she was very angry Ben asks what made her angry Yun says it's but that 10,000 بظرف she if the protagonist shares this and though. And reveals that she thought about Discord Late and Rotel because she feels that they don't help but all Ben says she never thought of something like this. And asks what nonsense she's talking about the says that she would have had a different attitude if she had been moved by the idea of tricking. Only the capable with her she would have been able to murder her companions but she would have let them be eliminated indirectly through necklages she if the protagonist Zalkri. That she thinks about doing that ban questions if she would do it and the says yes the protagonist then calls her ready. Yun wanted him to take his deepest thought seriously but realizes that he does not intend to ban Late and Rotel so she asks. If the protagonist thinks they both have talent and he replies that he does Late with so incredibly well the only problem is that he trusts all his potential in the sacred sword and can't keep up with the situation empty-handed at that moment Late is in the room drinking the hot chocolate. that the protagonist left for him by no so think that Rachel is incomparable that physical ability and potential she possesses is incredible. The only problem is that she still can't handle the inner emotions but the protagonist is sure that they can fix their problems all around. When that day comes their talent will force surpass anything you can imagine you can't help but be happy to see the protagonist fate like this and she says she'll trust him. Bangkok's a smile on his face and asks if the crew will help Rich and let Yan replace that if those two don't overcome their struggles and forth. She'll take it all her frustration on Bandy protagonist was expecting that Yan smiles as she leaves him alone and says that he must work hard. If he doesn't want to be punched Ban tries to understand if he heard correctly but Yan jumps over the wall and says she will meet him tomorrow. The protagonist could not sleep without a threat from the crew the next day drives and class 11 gathers in the train hall. The protagonist watches with fear because this time late and you seem fiercer suddenly the blonde boy is thrown away because the protagonist too quickly approaches. Late thoughts Kyle asking why the protagonist said he would teach him something and brought him here to call the blow suddenly and he is that the sister in his body. It is natural that it is this way the crew adds that Late does not just be observing once as the protagonist so he must stop when and stand up. Late says that he would use the sword and you replace that he will not do that the first step is to run to fight without using the sword with screams. Asking how she does take the sword from a sword the menu if he intends it give up on life if one day he meets an enemy and is without a sword the boy replace that he doesn't know. And she encourages him to learn hand combat the protagonist raised come his friend he says he is only doing that to help his cause then he asks that us at least once. In fighting without a sword his friend finally decrees he trusts the protagonist and thinks that the boy would do nothing at harm him. Late gets excited to start over the next mountain foot hits his face and she says that he should not leave open as the protagonist was also taken by surprise. By the agility of the tachyon continues the sequence of kicks Wilson that Late must fix his posture and block the attack. The key uses his hands to defend himself and feels that the free throws too fast to counter tachyon asks for his combatants to exor. And finally realizes that Yun was not robo and he said that Late would not know how to fight without the sword normally with his strength he could defeat Recto. But now he is acted as if he were a novice in hand-to-hand combat his skills seemed to have been expert the protagonist to wonder if he was blind. For not noticing his friend's difficulty Yun constructs his bunches at first level and taunts Late saying that he is completely useless without a sword. Later replies that this is not true Yu says that he thought like that he would not be looking for the sword all the time instead of focus on the bone. Late is so angry that a cold Late escapes from his body Yu looks so that understand what is happened at that moment the boy tries to attack her. Rachel and Ben stare at Late frightened by his transformation Rachel asks if this is his true form simply the key has turned into a car. The protagonist asks if it's some suppressed bird that scared Yan is angry in the look Late's uniform stores covertly. And suddenly he forced the crane the protagonist ran toward him and Yan stopped him saying that a free throws faint is not something they can solve. Late goes back to his martial form and his uniform looks destroyed cross black as if he knows what the problem is. Later Blazier senses she does to want to continue like this and asks if Yun can continue training him the crew replace that first. She needed to apologize because she misjudged him later replies that he doesn't need but Yu says that initially thought he was a cool city. But in fact he is indeed carrying a bomb on his back Late was tricked into thinking that at least once in his life he would not be insulted. He yells that he doesn't like you meanwhile Rachel asked the protagonist what they should do the crew hears no answer. And realizes that Ben is motionless it turns out that his infinite reader ability showed that Late possessed Holy Spirit and demonic spirit the protagonist. Does not know how such obvious concepts can coexist in one body perhaps this was the cause of the explosion he decided to Late later in the dormitory. Then turns to Rachel and apologizes for not hearing his codec replace that it's okay and says she would try to. Ben is afraid because of the last experience Rachel asks for help she is sure she has the means to contain her power so she needs to learn how to do it. The protagonist feels intimidated and this he did want the crew to make an effort because the event yesterday was traumatic enough but he decides to run her on his own. And hands her a wood so the protagonist says that it doesn't need be as intense as Late just make late movements. And casually increase the intensity Rachel replies that he understands but the protagonist is lost in his thoughts before coming to this dimension. He dreamed of going to college before imagined that his college life would be as chaotic as it is, but he needs to confess that now he is happy. At that moment Rachel does not seem to know how the episode the protagonist تظهر تران أبان ذكر trauma. It took the form of the beast and showed towards him 5 minutes was enough for Rachel to lose control. The protagonist had to rely on if help moments later Rachel's heart returns normal. And Ben celebrates that she is back. She asks her many times this has happened. The protagonist replies that it was more than 10 times and he is very tired. Rachel cries and apologizes. Ben strokes her answers it's okay. He prepared in advance in case this happens so she doesn't have to feel bad. Rachel feels a sinister aura and when she looks at Ian, he screams scared as Ian asks why the protagonist is coming talking to the beast instead of turning her. The character is late by default and seems jealous of Ben. Rachel says that the protagonist was helping because he cared about her and accused the girl of half of ulterior motive. And says that she should train with wandering thoughts with her reborn Scott for about the next time you enter the room. Rachel says the protagonist realizes that the girl always loses her excitement when she talks to and he also doesn't understand. He determined she was trying after making so much physical effort yesterday and knew the important thing is that the girl strived to improve. The protagonist says that he is right and you watches carefully what the boy is called. Ben says that she received the proof it left the island for a mom. And this time she can take a birth with him. You is sure that she will be chosen. Says that it occurred because she is tired standing here. Ben looks at Rachel and asks if she wants to go with him, breaking his expectation if late was surprise. But the protagonist said he wanted a date with Rachel the next day. Ben waits for Rachel in a store. He is in connection with Yon and let the crew told him not to stay late on the street. Late Kate said that the protagonist preferred to take a car instead of his room at that moment a face caused. Rachel says that he tried on the clothes he asked for. She asked her she is the crew confessed that she has none for wearing something so short and embarrassed. Protagonist avoids saying exactly what he is thinking because the more distorted so he raises his finger saying that the clothes are good. You realize what is happening and starts insulting Ben. We later prefers to leave the code before he says something I can't. A few minutes later Rachel looks delighted at the city. That exists at say the Academy. The protagonist says that it is really stand and adds that another or count another department store. Ben woke the head and did not realize that there were many people in the district. Rachel and the applause set of his friend and soon became desperate. The protagonist goes back and touches her hand asking if something happened. He apologizes for forgetting that she never came here before. And in the belief of her behind Rachel replies that it's no problem. Ben is embarrassed to say that I need hold hands so they don't get lost in this crowd. The girl agrees shyly. After that they do some shopping and go to some stores. Both are easily mistaken for a couple since they are walking hand in hand all the time. They have fun and they sit in the eat at a restaurant. The protagonist asks if it's okay for her because he heard that they meet in this place. Or mad of monsters. Rachel replies that she likes it. She tries the food and says that it is very good. The protagonist agrees that it is better than he thought. Rachel has been eating his favorite dish since he joined the gym. She tells herself that it is thanks to Ben. The protagonist realizes that she has stopped for a moment and asks if something went around. Rachel replies no, in fact she is very happy to be invited by him. The girl says that today she received several beautiful gifts and they've eaten her favorite dish, but she feels that she cannot repay this. Rachel thinks that she does not deserve to have so much fun because she does not believe that she can control her abilities. She cannot hide that she is insecure. The protagonist has an idea and asks her to look at the open her hand. The emotions she is feeling in her hand. Rachel interrupts the explanation to say that he can't say any or Ben decides to summarize it with words. He says that before the girl was very angry. And he could feel her naked emotions, but now she is fine and her emotions have changed. Maybe the solution is to create bliss inference for her. Rachel asks if the protagonist can use the ability to see her concerns. Ben answers yes and crushes the orb, destroying the girl's bad emotion. Rachel scared and the protagonist promises Nick that he will solve her problem so he would the girl to enjoy it. وده thinking about reciprocated beneath Rachel finally feels good. Ben apologizes if it seemed breath and she says he wasn't and the girl said Shelly that she would get closer to Ben like her. The protagonist asks who Rachel is talking about. She says she's talking about Ian. The two seem very close. Ben disagrees with that. He says that Ian attacks him with an offer he can. Rachel says that he scares everyone with his word, but he seems like the protagonist a flaw. Ben does think that in fact he's afraid when Elferion touches a sword that she starts laughing and Ben asks what funny she said she's relieved. Because she thought he was a code who feared nothing that she approaches Ben's face and says that now he feels he can't try harder when he starts to pull him by the hand. Telling that he's going to buy clothes for him too or brought against his habit see that she has returned to normal the crew starts running away he takes the bat. Nate comes and the sent changes to the academy's meet Romeo main asks Ben's artifact to it a little longer because it's almost over at that moment. Someone complains about the videos recorded by the protagonist he asks will something like this happen later. The teacher with class says that precious information is being spread recklessly and suggests stopping them someone says that from the beginning. They should have carelessly accepted someone for such a low dimension at that moment the metal conductor cause main and says that. The autonomous behavior of that student to into for she must know that this is clearly a violation of the authority of the academy then asks. Hal the teacher intends to take responsibility main look at the record as infant surprised to see that been recorded inside of the tar. The truth is that she thought that the protagonist would not be able to do something like this since external artifacts normally do not work inside the tar because they are overload and backdot the strong magic emitted by the bliss but he did something surprise. And Marino Cliff note we can say that small camera robot did most of the work main did to it for the protagonist to make a tool that works inside the tar. But that's not all he also publicly posted this video on the channel Ben's idea was to make Rebelli become famous and can differ of the students of the academy. Yamin tried to make him change his main base and that he could spread the information about the tar that everyone worked hard. But the ban replied that it was okay to do that because other people would also report their experiences with the other students also say. That he would hide the information but the constellation Yamin tried to change his decision by talking about the unbelievable reality of the academy. But the protagonist chose to post the video anyway if known that there would be big repercussions the teacher warned that this instead could bring big and so changes. The protagonist stood firm and asked her to test her copy Yamin was a little she with her courage she'd face the boy to exit. If he feels safe now the teacher was being intimidated by her student's attitude that deep down. She was sure that the creation of the protagonist could result in something immense that transcends the gap between dimensions the teacher asks if she plans to take responsibility. Yamin decides to support her student says that film and posted the other video is a person matter for each challenger she sees no problem with this attitude. And notes that she does know what responsibility Professor Kant is talking about the man laughs and says that this statement makes it seem like she cares about that student. The leader of the artifact creation department named Ariane joins the conversation she asks with this Kizan Yamin replies that he is an ordinary student. Professor Ryu in charge of Horus combat studies says that he can't believe it's an ordinary student the information from the tar should only be for the academy. So it's clearly a violation of the academy's authority Yamin disagrees because the only reason why no one has found the tar so far is simply because they didn't have the artifacts for it. It would be important for everyone to collaborate and try to learn a little of her skills and asks her to explain the technology and skills. So that everyone can understand Leyland interferes because she knows that the teacher is losing control. She says that she spent 10 years working on an artifact that could be used in the Tehran. I came to the conclusion that it is impossible especially precision couldn't fulfill her research. Showed that no artifact could withstand the amount of the emitted by the term interrupts her and says that ban managed to do it later and says that it doesn't make sense. The student from a low dimension that moment do something like that at that moment she notices the small robot and prepares the class to study. The artifact that filmed the video of the Orion says she will disassemble it and find out what kind of technology the protagonist used to do it. Yamin protects the small robot and says that she only brought him here because they asked to see her student's artifact but he can't let anyone touch him. The teachers start to accuse Yamin of not wanting that Cobra suddenly someone asked them to keep quiet the face president of the academy. None the known says that things can be resolved without candle everyone nibbles and sailed the known truth Larian. And thanks her for the research and referring first for almost 10 years the woman is embarrassed by the face president sword zenanas if she thinks Ban's bashi. And Larian replies elsewhere that took the artifact is still recovering from the threat it suffered just now. Can't ask so the face paralized is an can replace that the protagonist is the only one in the world recognized by the other teacher's secret. Because ban joined a short time ago and comes from a low diminish if this is the beginning of the face paralized they think this statement is reckless. They now replace that he has a reason to think that then he asks Yamin to something from the video so that the teachers understand Yamin is confused. The face paralized says that maybe she does know either so he will tell everyone demands speaks loudly that ban and his classmates from class 11 or the only ones who were chosen by the coastalist the teachers or stand by the news. It is unbelievable that a rookie was chosen after claiming that they are the only ones. Yamin asked the face paralized not to speak carelessly. They no questions if ban and understood made a contract with the coastalist. Teacher does not know why the man is gone so far and denies that her student has made any claim. They know some that it must have been difficult to express himself. In front of the defense constellation in this case it is better to my class 11 which has actually the teachers commented this is absurd. There is no reason to ban if these students who did not sign a contract with the constellation the face paralized says that he does not care if they cause a claim. Or not. What matters is that they have been chosen by the constellation. Surely other constellations will be interested in them after this contract has been refused. That is why he is willing to keep the students chosen by the constellation. He asks if the teachers have any objections. Certainly no one is against it. The face paralized ends by saying that recording the case of film no teacher can prevent something like this from student. Questions and person requests will be led. Yamin is sad she knows that this meet what the face paralized would do with the protagonist. Is not for the best in the class. They are just instructions from the paralized. They know says that any teacher who tries to intimidate the protagonist will be expelled. After that he says could beat everyone wish them a curve weekend until the boss Yamin did expect that the protagonist would be able to get the paralized so quickly. Sadly the teacher is taken out of her thoughts. Being expected invitation Cantoni asked if she would have a drink at the board toast her students first. The little robot does like the idea at all. Yamin simply teleports without responded at the invitation. The teachers make themselves available to company Cantoni. The next day ban was stopped in the middle of the cafeteria by other students who were interested in the protagonist style. There were so many questions that ban felt sufficient some corrosive affirmaton data and which is the same from forensics whether is قدرة. The latest sheer numbers the channel dedicated they surpass 9 million subscribers after posting the video. It can be said that at this point it would be more difficult to find someone at the gym who has not seen the channel and doesn't know. Seem very happy with the approach of the cruise and the protagonist, but he understands the interest of the students because he knows that band skills are really remarkable. Actually says the protagonist finally meets with his friends and says that this Monday morning is very different. Late says that it must be could be famous. The protagonist replies that the channel belongs to them too, so if they find any fans they have to be keen. Later suddenly someone asks at loud if this noise is because of manipulated images. These didn't count so the someones who harassed Rachel Rear the blue haired boy says that only low dimension people like that channel. He also thinks that the video is manipulated because there is no spider of that says the whole case is that tomorrow all these lies will be exposed. Late asks what is tomorrow. And the protagonist replies that it is the day he will fight against that character. Seems that those who heard that in the video were looking forward to the fight. Probably because they wanted to see him kill crushed Rachel and later already asks if he is confident to respond in the best possible. To the support of those who like the channel, Ben Smith answers yes, he will strive for tomorrow to be the best event next the drifts and the bonds already. The teacher was that the duel will be broadcast live on the official channel of the school. If you agree, just send the documentary interface appears in front of both and they agree. The rules of the duel are simple. If someone is seriously injured or surrenders the duel ends, attack and fatal points is forbidden, but the injuries are at your risk. The protagonist realizes that he can be incapacitated in this fight. Cause him and asks if he is ready. He senses that Ben may be afraid and says that the boy can surrender if something happens. The protagonist looks surprised. The says that he will accept his surrender if he calls and barks like a dog. Benoit is his eyes without understand underneath. Meanwhile no spectators begin to ref in the rain. The unbelievable door from before already expects the defeat of the protagonist. Cordem is also understands and his attention is directed to the blackhead craft. Let هذه رياش he says that the life expectancy half exceed 10. But most workers banner Chelsea's and for an replace that it was to be expected that weapon has to many people bore watch than atibas. He can surprise everyone that there's no choice but to prove that he has talent. Meanwhile the protagonist is wonderfully hereditary. Him this phrase of call and borken like a dogs and like it was from a favorite novel at that moment but intellect that his word had in faith. Now he will show his potential delibont laughs and says that he's acting very calmly. The protagonist turns his back. Says that he can act calmly. He tricks the so that of the inventory and says that act can figure it on his own. This song is at Professor John. Swookley declared the start of the duel because he wants to wreck the skin to piece. The teacher starts the fight between the student of class الوحيد and the student of class 11 wrecked prepares his fist to crush the protagonist. That student is so big that his stabs destroy the rain. The protagonist stands motionless, looking at the enemy's fist approach. His face erect was clearly confident because of his size but knows he can use agility to his advantage. At that moment the protagonist slides back and jumps to direct so he believes that the opponent will not be able to stand it if he is to so. Directo is hit in the face with the sword and falls backward bananas gracefully on the ground the night after the day that rotil and the protagonist went on إهدى. Class 11 got together to talk about the method that Banu would use first that told the protagonist of some techniques but before use that there was a lot of trial and error. You need phase to use that technique of deflect the opponent's attack and counter-attack, and if you do that you can say that you totally master the reverse method. She picks up a brand saying that she will attack with different speeds and different shapes so Ban needs it fit at least once. The protagonist remembers the training he received and tells himself that Recto is totally different from me and the stone K almost could touch him. Ban followed the plan and hit the stone man's face but before hitting infused the sword with wafer energy it was a craft attack because that rock hard body seems to transmit the energy of the waves while at that moment Rack remembers the non-recker and screams asking how he dares touch his body. The protagonist faces the bone and asks if he can stop when Nan act like a man and manages to provoke Rack to the K traced hit him with that stone hand but the protagonist dodges. Directo is being consumed by rage and refers to Ban as a low-dimension miracle asking how he dares disobeys him like this and realizes that he really knows the bone. Directo energizes his hand with force magic and Celsi will finish him off. The protagonist manages to dodge that attack. He thought that Directo would try a different method. After being hit for the first time but acted like decisive better for Ban Directo continues the attack in the same with a tiny countermeasure. At that moment the protagonist makes a real attack with the sword. He lands on the ground after several precise blows to Recto's hand. The enemy screams and Ban as he feels his own raffling.